Well, it's time for another Halloween season, and that means Halloween videos. Got my Halloween costume back on, and on this channel, Halloween means a new Scooby Doo video. Scooby Doo has been a staple for my channel ever since the first Halloween video, covering the witch's ghost, and I found it a blast and incredible for the Halloween season. One of the best Scooby Doo movies made, introduced the fan favorite Hex Girls. Then after made a video covering the franchise's weird 80s movies, Brew Brothers, the fan favorite Ghoul School, and the not so fan favorite Reluctant Werewolf. And that soon inspired me to make the Scooby Doo timeline video, by far the most popular and successful video I've ever done. I attempted to unite every single mainline Scooby show and movie to a somewhat accurate timeline. I'm surprised it worked as well as it did. Like, this franchise has been going on since the late 60s and still has never stopped becoming the most popular and iconic animated franchises of all time. It's a show that like literally everyone grew up with and has seen at least one version as their personal favorites. But with so many things that come out of the series, you inevitably ask, which is the best? What is the most objective, best quality, and praised thing the series has given us? Now, some might say the original Where Are You? But even though that's beloved and iconic, it still is widely critiqued for its animation quality and writing at times, so you can't say it's the objective best of the franchise. There's only really two options by fans, one a movie and the other a series. One is the classic movie Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. This legendary movie revitalized the franchise after nearly a decade-long hiatus, and without many restrictions the other iterations had, which allowed the writers to go all out in its story and especially the scares, making what's undoubtedly one of the darkest, most intense things the franchise has put out. And it's amazing. It was so successful and influential that it practically single-handedly revived the franchise and led to the domination of the franchise to this day. But the other, undoubtedly considered the best TV series from this franchise, is Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated. What if I told you there was a Scooby-Doo series with a legitimate, serialized, lore-filled, drama-packed storyline? What if I told you there was a Scooby-Doo show that some of the most gorgeous and beautiful art direction and use of color and lighting ever seen on Cartoon Network? What if I told you there was a Scooby-Doo show that had so many dark, intense, and downright horror-themed elements you can't even believe it's a part of the franchise? What if I told you there was a Scooby-Doo show that had Fred as the most interesting character? Sounds insane, but it's real. Mystery Incorporated has been treated as basically the crown jewel of the Scooby-Doo franchise by the fan base, the pinnacle of what a Scooby-Doo show could be that's genuinely interesting, engaging, and brilliantly written. Well, okay, minus a few things, but for the most part, a practical masterpiece. But there is the question, does it deserve to be? Does it really deserve its status as the objective best Scooby-Doo show and arguably thing the franchise has put out? It sounds like a lot, and even to newcomers who have never seen the show might doubt the claim. But that's what I'm here for. I'm going to go to a deep dive to this entire show in order to show just how utterly exceptional this iteration of the series is, and how it got its practically legendary status in this 50-year franchise. So like I promised last year, without further ado, let's dive into Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated. But before I begin, I want to state, do not watch this video if you have not seen this show and have any interest in seeing it. I am going through all of it, and every single major plot point and twist, and you will get this experience ruined for you forever. I give the biggest endorsement possible if you are thinking of watching it. Like, go see it right now. It's regarded as the best Scooby-Doo show ever made. It's a crime if you didn't. And I don't want to be the one who ruined it for you. This is my first warning. I will spoil the entire show. Okay, well, if you're still here, time to begin. But before we do, we need to go through the actual history of the show. But I better hurry. I hear there's a ghost going around terrorizing other smaller YouTubers out there. The Playback Phantom. So I really don't want to be on the open here, so I'll try to be brief. So Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated was created by Tony Cervone, Spike Brandt, and Mitch Watson, made by Warner Bros. Animation obviously, and on the Cartoon Network. According to an interview with one of the showrunners, Mitch Watson, upload on the JB and Millie channel, watch for more info, very insightful. Apparently, Sam Register, the head of Warner Bros. Animation, was seeking to revitalize the branch after most shows were cancelled. It wasn't stated directly, but it could be due to the infamous CN Real block that brought so many shows to an end on the channel to focus on live-action programming that completely blew up in its face. Which did lead to the next generation of CN cartoons that were widely beloved, like Adventure Time and Regular Show, also airing the same year as Mystery Incorporated. And though Mitch was hesitant, he was allowed free reign to reinvent the franchise, which he got the idea to reinvent similar to the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
I want to get some of the main IP that we've done in the past. Scooby-Doo is one of them. Would you be interested in rebooting it for us? And I said no. Well, if you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? And I said, I don't know, but I can tell you what I would try to do is be what they did with Battlestar Galactica. If you would let me do that with it, just really turn it on its head, I'd be interested.
This led to Mystery Incorporated being such a massive outlier in Scooby-Doo media, an artistic, story, and character-driven reboot that fundamentally flipped the franchise upside down to make a new inventive take. And wow, that's fascinating. It's not the first time the franchise at this time was asked to be reinvented. People think what's new was the version that came out before, but not only did that show end at 2006, but it wasn't technically the last. You made a joke about it in the timeline vid. With Scooby Doo given a huge revival by the direct-to-DVD movies and the live-action movie, Scooby was back in the public consciousness, especially with what's new simultaneously bringing back the old school stuff, but also kind of changing it up in its own way. It did lead to other series trying to branch out more with things already established, with the Get a Clue version, which is either obscure or infamous, also trying to be a massive shake-up of the formula, but ended up having absolutely nothing to do with the franchise, being about nanomachine transformations, supervillain organizations, and just the most blocker stuff that has no right to be in Scooby-Doo whatsoever. And it kind of has an infamous reputation as a result. But there was also the TV live-action movies, the Mystery Begins movies. These basically tried to make a new live-action origin of the gang, but it was really low budget and it felt super amateur, almost like a pretty elaborate fan film, so it didn't really go anywhere and has minimal effects on the franchise. So already there were a few failed experiments with the franchise, which does beg a proper in-depth reinvention of that. But unlike Get a Clue, which had basically nothing to do with the franchise, Mystery Incorporated kept the core of everything, what made Scooby-Doo work, and then expanded it outward, making it more complex and deep, almost like a serialized drama. And that was a big risk. Many networks at the time did not like serialization, since it would require a viewing order and they can't air episodes randomly. The plan was they knew they would get at least 52 episodes, so they could fully develop a running story arc without getting canceled. Granted, this one part of the interview is pretty telling.
To allow us to do what we wanted to do. They were totally into it. The only thing that freaked them out was that we wanted to have a relationship between Shaggy and Velma. That was it. That was the one. That was the thing that freaked them out more than anything.
Yeah, honestly, they were right. Granted, there is a reason I'll get to much later, but according to them, Cartoon Network really mistreated the show, probably because of its serialized and dark nature. So yeah, it's still hard for shows to be like that. I also heard some news about Derek J. Wyatt.
One of our character designers, Derek Wyatt, is a die-hard Scooby-Doo fan. And so he fully believed in the ghosts are not real, you cannot make them real, they always have to be unmasked at the end. He absolutely hated this and was after that. He would just go, "You wrecked it! You wrecked it!" Damn,
he's one of those guys? Probably love these movies. Though, if you watch my timeline video, you know that Scooby-Doo has mingled with the paranormal far more than it would seem up front, and has made some of the most legendary and acclaimed iterations doing so. And with this idea, the three of them would go on to make infamously one of the darkest, most intense and engaging Scooby-Doo series ever seen before. Like really, this has never really happened before, and it was a risk, especially given, as you heard, CN did not appreciate it. And yet, it paid off, becoming well known as one of the best things the franchise gave us. When it aired in 2010, it was certainly a shock to see a new Scooby-Doo show, and one done so differently, but it got people hooked on its story and animation, leading to becoming the crown jewel of the TV series. But enough history, let's actually get into it, starting with the first episode. Let's hurry up here, I'm scared. Starting off with the episode, The Beast from Below, introducing our gang getting arrested. What an intro. Getting chewed out by Sheriff Bronson, voiced by Patrick Warburton. And if you know anything about Warburton, you know he's a voice acting legend. Literally anything he says is hilarious by delivery.
What happened here?
Nothing unusual, just a standard scary gnome attack.
Watch those refillable sodas, boys, you're on duty. No, take one of these other losers, women.
And even more shocking, confirming the gang has parents. Yeah, no ambiguous one-off uncles, they have actual establishing and reoccurring family members. It does establish that the gang's mystery solving, while very successful, is not very popular. Getting an explanation, introducing us to the hometown of Crystal Cove, the most haunted place on Earth, and a museum dedicated to the paranormal happenings being a major tourism draw. It's run by Velma's family, who's forced to give a tour to her dissatisfaction, also giving us some immediate foreshadowing.
Garrison of Spanish conquistadors mysteriously vanished from the harbor. Again in 1765, when an entire town of missionaries likewise disappeared.
After the disappearance of the Darrow family, the town has been a hub of paranormal happenings, but many are revealed to be done by the Where Are You era rogues, establishing that this show takes place after the original series. And later on, acknowledging Scrappy-Doo and Flim Flam existed too, so the Scrappy-Doo show and 13 Ghosts already happened. Though 13 Ghosts also kinda gets contradicted, I got into it more in my timeline video, so it's like vague continuity by that show. But curiously enough, you can see the Luna Ghost from the live action movie, which makes absolutely no sense. One, the movie, they were clearly adults who lived on their own, while here they're still in high school. And two, 13 Ghosts can happen if Scrappy-Doo went evil and the gang broke up for a long amount of time, so what gives? Yeah, one thing I learned from my timeline video is that I care much more about Scooby-Doo continuity than any of the creators. My only explanation for it is that it's a selective continuity, where the first incident happened, but the gang never broke up because of it, and the events of the movie never happened. Cause face it, without that argument that happened after the case, the entire plot wouldn't happen, and legit tell me this Fred would do that? But who cares, background detail in my timeline is still perfect, no arguments. But our parents stop her from killing the magic like a modern Scooby Doo movie, revealing the reason why they're unpopular around town is because the town loves its spooky supernatural reputation and all the tourism and interest it brings. But the gang solving so many mysteries just to be douchebag in costumes seriously hurts that. Oh, it is interesting that this show has a consistent location, which you rarely ever see in the Scooby Doo series, only exceptions being like pub named and technically the original Where Are You? Yes, though they never say what the town is or focused on it, it is in the relative area of their hometown, give or take casual driving distance or vacation. They go to the same malt shop, and the Creeper episode was literally at their school dance. It's the same relative place. It's not a road trip thing, remember this. Now, on the one hand, it makes sense why so many other shows are open-ended, allowing the game to solve mysteries practically around the world. Perfect for any situation they want to get into or write, it's completely open to them. But this is advantageous to the show for a few reasons. One, aside from also getting excuses to travel out of the town for specific reasons, Bristol Cove is actually developed given the serialized nature of the show, establishing lore and locations, perfect to focus cool episodes around them and contributing to the overall story. This town is super diverse in its locations where it does feel like anything can happen, and two, because it's a set location, we can have multiple reoccurring characters to use and develop, and to establish a reoccurring cast to work off of in the story. Cause you never really get that in a Scooby Doo series with 99% of the characters being episodic one-offs, or maybe having one or two extra appearances unless you're a fan favorite like the Hex Girls. So for this show, it really works well in its favor and contributes to the factor of inverting the regular Scooby Doo aspects, but taking them in an interesting and developed way. And yeah, freaking parents, when have you seen that? What, since like freaking Pirates Ahoy or something? So the Dinkleys are more spiritual new age tippies, greatly paralleling Velma's sassy and cynical nature in this show, and are given smarts on all things, making a great contrast. Daphne's established to be freaking rich, which to be fair, she always was kind of treated like that, but has an extended family of multiple very successful sisters who Phil sees the least of all. Shaggy's parents are more socialite and also rich, but couldn't really care less about their son. Also, fun fact, his dad is voiced by Casey Kasem, the original voice actor for Shaggy, being his last role in the franchise before passing down the torch to Matthew Lillard, who starred in the first live-action movie, and this was his first voice acting role as Shaggy in animation, and he keeps the mantle to this day. Well, aside from Will Forte, but I'll get more into the gang's depictions later. Most importantly is Fred's dad, a single parent after his mother left, being Fred Jones Sr. He's the mayor of the town and tries to keep things going smoothly, working closely with the police force, often has to manage events in his own and the town's reputation with these paranormal happenings. He tries to get his son to shape up. He's the biggest pusher for these paranormal happenings, ironically thrilled with the terror these monster brings, as it brings new business, as he plans to make Crystal Cove the paranormal hotspot of the world. Also, I always had the feeling that he felt familiar, but I had no idea why, until my last video, where I realized he looks just like the President of the United States from Monsters vs. Aliens, which I covered last time. How beautifully ironic. Obligatory video plug, go watch it. But yeah, unbelievable. We have a series where every single one of the gang's parents, I guess except for Scooby, are established and are reoccurring and are important characters. It's insane. You have never seen that in Scooby-Doo before and probably never again in all likelihood. But the reoccurring thing about them all is that they really don't appreciate the friendship they have, thinking they get into way too much trouble, basically like teenagers on a phase. So it's already setting up a lot of character conflicts in the town, making their heroes like plucky underdogs in a world where no one appreciates them. Which is an interesting subversion considering how virtually everyone is okay with the gang or hell loves and idolizes them on occasion. Again, an interesting subversion that gives them so much more weight to their actions and that they should go through with their passion and friendship despite society telling them not to. But mystery shows its face when construction workers find an old cave the town is known for, and giving it to horror movie tropes decide to explore it and find radioactive containers, granted with very funny lamp shading.
Clear, isn't it? Those are radioactive symbols, meaning whatever inside is dangerous. Meaning we need to open it right away. Don't want whatever in there to mess up our schedule.
Unleashing our monster with obvious results, but cutting to the gang and introducing the awkward Shaggy Velma romance. Yeah, this is admittedly one of the biggest problems people have in this show, and one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason people have to not liking it. Now, it's not like this is completely out of nowhere. There were like small hints of this maybe being a thing in other shows. Like in Where Are You, the two are shown dancing together at the high school dance. But already it's shown pretty one way with Velma really wanting to go through with it, with Shaggy more casual trying not to force it. But the whole thing is an intentional thing by the interview, which I'll get to by the end. Again, there's more stuff going on. However, on the flip side, Fred and Daphne are also dating, which isn't too surprising. The two really get serious. It has always been a very well implied thing and even showcased in some episodes. And thankfully, this aspect gets a lot less hate. Personally though, I never really got interested in inter-gang love relationships. I much prefer when everyone's just platonic. It just works better. Give me Crystal and Shaggy any day of the week. Well, obviously Scooby doesn't have one yet. Maybe they include Amber too. But enough about that aspect for now. The plot literally explodes in their face with the monster randomly attacking them in the van. As Fred's excited for the mystery, investigating the cave it came out of, and investigating the toxins, they discover a mysterious locket. Maybe this is foreshadowing. Oh, also they just find the corpses of the workers. Wait, what the fuck? Yeah, holy the show just immediately showed just how messed up and gruesome it is. The police obviously get called with the sheriff wanting the gang to have nothing to do with this being official police business. Whoa, an active police force with protocols against a group of adolescents personally investigating and potentially violate criminals and creatures on official investigation? That's just unheard of. Usually in Scooby Doo media, the cops do jack all as the gang does everything, but it's really not for any laws. But again, the town just wanting them to keep out of solving a new big draw to the most haunted place on Earth. Then Fred steals a corpse. Okay, what the hell is this show? And they get the hell with their science teacher right during the class hilariously. Turns out the guy isn't dead, thankfully, but in a form of dehydrated stasis. But he's not able to determine what the slime is, trying to study it more himself. With the gang getting a break at the local dessert shop named Fruit Myers, owned by this weird clown man selling this delicious green paste. Anyway, more relationship drama with Daphne obviously trying to hit on Fred, but him being as dense as a brick doesn't get it, thinking they're just friends. But the slime mutant strikes again, this time turning its sights on Professor Ruffalo, as the gang gets help from one of the few adults who actually like them, the very 80s radio host, Angel Dynamite. With Fred in a depressive state that it got him involved in this mess in the first place. Still, the gang tries to help him to stop the active monster in town, and makes the conclusion that the slime matter is actually Fruit Myers' dessert. Wait, that stuff does this to people? Good lord, I think it's a public health hazard, it's making me sick. But this proves the slime mutant monster might not be real, as Franklin Fruit Meyer is a prime suspect. But of course, Scooby and Shaggy find the monster while looking for clues, and we finally get a good look at this thing, and good lord, that is a wicked design. Look at the sharp angles, the translucent slimy skin, the muscles and skeletons poking through so gruesomely. This is an incredible monster design. It's so badass yet unsettling. It's amazing. Even the way it moves is creepy and unique. It seriously sells the idea this is some sort of human horribly mutated by some toxins. It's amazing. Discover the storage room that directly leads to the caverns from before, but suspiciously, there's another hole digging above the town's bank, eventually giving Fred the idea to make his famous traps, which is a major personality trait for the dude. Like it's always kind of been, but here it's like his main obsession. The monster in an obviously over-the-top and impractical Rube Goldberg machine makes you seriously wonder how the hell they had the time and resources to make this until... God, this freaking show. It goos, but surprisingly doesn't mummify them, leaving Daphne as the only one to do anything, desperate to outrun it, being an escape to the shop and getting caught, as the others eat their way out to save her, and trap it with its own goop, with the sheriff and the mayor arriving just in time, pointing to see their latest draw being captured, revealing it's actually Professor Ruffalo somehow. Basically the typical scheme making a monster to scare people from the sewers while he could dig under the bank to get rich. With Fruit Meyer so close to the bank, he could frame him for the crime using his desserts, and stage his own mummification to drive suspicion away. Honestly, not too bad at first mystery. Like, they did drive Fruit Myers pretty hard that you'd think it wasn't actually him, even if the evidence added up, but you never expect one of the mummified victims to actually be the culprit in a good bait and switch, even if there was really no one else it could be. Then again, in the literal starting episode, it could be anyone from the sheriff to the mayor to the parent. And this episode, while already having some pretty hilarious jokes and gags, this joke is amazing.
You've got a job as a teacher. Why do you need more money?
Oh.
But though he's arrested, I still think Fruit Myers should go under investigation considering his raw dessert was able to do something like that. It has to violate FDA guidelines. It turns out the locket they found has absolutely nothing to do with it, but the mayor seems to notice it. Mysterious. So as things are wrapped up with the mayor and sheriff unhappy to lose their newest tourist attraction, Daphne is concerned about the mysterious locket before all of them get called by a person called Mr. E, who warns them that they are doomed and they should have never removed the locket, and they're recovering something that should be long buried. The truth behind the curse of Crystal Cove. Oh.
The real mystery has just begun.
But yeah, that's it for the starter episode of Mystery Incorporated, and wow, what an episode. I think it does a fantastic job with everything it has to do, introducing not only the new setup for the series with the location and change the status quo with these new characters, but also introduce the much larger recurring supporting cast and show off pretty much all their relationships to each other. It also gives us a dive to the unsettling, creepy, and even disturbing nature of the show, indicating it's going to be much more darker and intense than your average Scooby Doo show. But as well as that, it gave us a classic Scooby Doo style plot with a few genuine surprises, but with the shakeup so we can still be at its core Scooby Doo series, and showing the viewer the much bigger and intricate mystery at play beyond it, and especially at the end with the mysterious man, indicating that they've stumbled onto an impossibly huge conspiracy of the whole town. It's great. Like seriously, this was fantastic. It gave you everything you need to know about the series in a single episode, enough to get you hooked to keep watching more. With as just the classic Scooby Doo formula we already know and love, to the serialized overlapping mystery of it all, it's brilliant. It already shows how much an amazing game changer the series is. Like you never get this from any other Scooby Doo show before or even after. And again, this is only the first episode. There's still so much in store. Admittedly, the next few episodes of the show have more of a slow burn, just trying to set up the tone of the show and continue the Scooby Doo formula. Just as the next one, the creeping creatures, with the gang investigating Gatormen in the abandoned town of Gatorsburg. Also a pretty good joke.
Manufactured gator products in decades.
Not since the gator mines dried up.
Now, admittedly, the mystery here kind of sucks. Like, geez, I wonder who the gator people are. The real star of the episode is the animation. Good freaking lord, this show is absolutely gorgeous. I'm just gonna say it. I think this is one of CN's best looking shows, just period. The atmosphere of this episode in the entire series is absolutely breathtaking. Just look at it, the dense shadows, use of color and color theory, especially its stylized shading. It's just so incredible, oh my god. I legitimately don't think I've seen another Western cartoon that has this level of stylized shading and color. Like, good lord, the atmosphere and aesthetic is too much for me. I'm an artist and I freaking wish I could match the beauty of these shots and colors. It feels lived in with the textures constantly showing just grime and decay adding to the creep factor. This episode really shows it off. Like, the first episode had pretty great atmosphere, but this is gorgeous. And it's experimental too. This episode does so much with the atmospheric lighting, not just for the creeping greens of the swamp making it feel so creepy and dirty, to the unsettling red of the hotel they're forced to stay at, to the silhouettes when the lights go out and overexposure in the bathroom for realism. Like, holy, this show is an artistic goldmine. Like, seriously, I'm not kidding. This show is one of the most beautiful things I've seen. I'm so in love with it. It's so gorgeous, guys. Like, when can you say that about a Scooby Doo show? Like, seriously, when can you say a Scooby Doo show has genuinely gorgeous art and animation? I mean, like, before that on CN, we had, like, What's New, which isn't winning any awards even at the time, or even just before it, to Get a Clue, which, even though it's stylized, still isn't that great, but this, holy crap. Like, Scooby-Doo is an atmosphere right before, like, even the Where Are You era had really nice background art, even if the animation is pretty infamous. But here, this is the one Scooby-Doo show you can say where everything about its art and animation is gorgeous and brilliant. You can't say that about any other Scooby-Doo series, even once after. Especially after in some cases. It's another reason why this is held in such high regard. The franchise has never looked this good and this artistically beautiful ever again. It's like the best of something like Frank and Creepy, but for basically every episode. But it's not just the backgrounds and the lighting and shading, it's the character designs too. This show's lead character designer was Derek J. Wyatt, one of my personal artistic heroes and inspirations. His signature angular anime style is very apparent here. Now, I think there's not a show he's been in that I don't love, like Teen Titans, Ben 10 Omniverse, this show, and, well, not Transformers Animated. I'm not a Transformers fan, but if I was, I would probably love it too. The style is so cool and his designs nearly always pop out and work perfectly for the show and look gorgeous in the process. His unfortunate death in 2021 has been one of the deaths in the industry that has impacted me the most. It has always been a wild dream of mine to somehow work with him. And it's tragic, as a fantastic artist, designer, and art director who had helped in the production of so many iconic and beloved shows to millions perish so young. I may occasionally joke about some of his designs, opinions, or ideas, but I genuinely want nothing more than for him to still be with us today. Rest in peace. But to his designs, let's go to the gang. Again, fantastic redesign and reinvention of them. Now, the Scooby-Doo gang's design is absolutely iconic, never changing much from Iwa Takamoto's original designs. But there have been changes in the style and appearance every once in a while. This is a great change to the designs. Still mostly classic and carry most of the design attributes from the original, but stylize them great with Derek J. Wyatt's iconic angular style and to fit the style of the all-around show. Also, I love how they had the dot eyes of the original, but again, stylized to fit the new designs. Plus, all the other character designs work great too, being very unique given Derek J. Wyatt's signature angular style, but also giving it a ton of personality and charm as well, just instantly knowing what their deal is by design alone. But my god, the monsters of this show, good lord. These are just the best monsters of any Scooby-Doo series, like genuinely, bar none, no contest, just the best. Now, the classic show does have iconic monsters, even some legitimately scary ones at the time like the Ghost Clown or Space Coop, but it's easy to prop up those guys by a handful of the most iconic baddies that constantly get referenced in the series, forgetting that a lot are, well, kind of lame and forgettable. And even then, the iconic ones aren't the objective best design and scare-wise. I mean, the Creeper is one of the most, if not the most, iconic monsters of the franchise. He's a hunts-down green guy, not exactly bone-chilling. And rarely, if ever, have the shows managed to make legitimately creepy or well-designed monsters, What's New especially. But weirdly, Be Cool kind of cooks on occasion with its monster designs wild. But this show has pretty much every design for the monsters be incredible, memorable, unique, and creepy. Stylization is on point, making so many of these guys cool and gruesome, actually frightening and disturbing, and the lighting and shading of the show exemplifies their presence tenfold, making the best assortment of monster designs and concept the show has ever seen. It's absolutely incredible. Scooby-Doo stories work a lot better when the monster is great, and these monsters for the most part are fantastic and help so many of the episodes. Like as I said, the Slime Unit was fantastic and gruesome. Gatormen weren't that good of a mystery, but their design given the lighting and atmosphere are so creeping and gruesome that elevate them so much more because of it. Then there's the Ghost Truck, which, okay, it was pretty lame. I've seen scarier trucks in big rigs. But the Man Crab, just look at that thing. They didn't have to make it as brutal and gnarly and detailed as it is, but it looks so good. Like, this show does such a good job with the monster that they generally feel real and vicious, and you always think, okay, maybe, just maybe this one is actually legit. Despite it being a Scooby-Doo show, it's great. In fact, a later one, The Headless Horror, legitimately unnerving when I first saw it.
You were warned!
So many cool ass monsters and sequences, such amazing shots and atmosphere. It just doesn't feel like Scooby Doo. It's so much more than that. I love it. It's one of those things where like everything about the show visuals is utterly spectacular, and I can't stop gushing about it. And again, from Scooby Doo of all things, is practically unheard of. And still, with so many more awesome designed monsters and gorgeous episodes, with such great lighting and shading like El Horrifico and the Monster Children and Alice Majors. Oh my god, it's one of the best artistic cartoons I've seen. Come on, give it so much more appreciation. But as the show keeps going on with its standard Monster of the Week premise at this point, might as well go into more in depth of the characters, because for once, there's a fair bit of stuff here. First, with the most simple, Scooby and Shaggy. Now, these guys are the mascots of the franchise and the comic relief of the series, with their gags being basically ingrained in the blood of it. For the most part, they keep to that spirit, with a ton of jokes about eating and being cowards, and there's also many a chase sequence. So there's a lot less of the comedic styling in the show where there's a chase, and it's usually actually intense, which in most shows wouldn't work, but the darkness and atmosphere of this show and the animation to back it up, it legitimately earns it. Now that there aren't any comedic moments, they don't like cross-dress or disguise to get away from a monster most of the time, which again does help to make them much more threatening and real. Matthew Lillard takes charge from his portrayal in the live-action movie. He does a good job here, taking the mantle from Casey. But admittedly, it still feels at times that he's not entirely used to the role. There's some parts where the performance seems a bit off, but at least now being the Shaggy voice, he's gotten into the groove so much better. But yeah, in terms of development, there's not too much new for them, but the show does have a few surprising attempts as it goes along. It's not completely gone, as there's a contentious relationship between him and Velma, and arguably Scooby-Doo. Okay, you know, that's really overselling it. It's not like there's a love triangle between them.
Stop it, Shaggy. I'm not stupid. Are you cheating on me?
Okay, remember when I said, well, obviously Scooby doesn't have one yet? Yeah, I know, I take it back, it's legit. But yeah, that leads to Velma. Now this Velma is a fair bit different, still being her normal bookworm self, but with a much more cynical and sassy personality, much like her portrayal by Linda Cardellini in the live action movie. Hope this isn't foreshadowing. It does really work for Velma fitting her character, and makes sense having to put up not only with the gang's nonsense, but the pressures from her parents, and the town that she's standing up against, but luckily it doesn't go too far for the most part. But it does lead to the Shaggy-Velma romance, which many consider to be the worst part of the show. To some, it's their biggest reason to hate the show. Basically, every episode from the start to like halfway through the season deals with a very one-sided relationship between Velma and Shaggy. Velma is completely diehard to make this work and wants to make Shaggy better in her mind, not really giving him much freedom or room in the relationship. And while he's open to it in the first place, really just wants to be more casual and can't commit to it or live up to her expectations, is preferring to hang out with Scooby, which makes it come across as pretty toxic, with Velma constantly mad at him for not committing to their relationship as much as she does, leading to a ton of drama.
Nothing. You didn't do anything.
So me not doing anything is the thing that you're mad about?
And not good drama, like really tedious romance drama that drags down the scenes it's in. Like, Ben 10 levels of terrible romance drama. If you get to that level, then good lord, just stop. And yeah, I can't blame people for hating it. Even I hate it. It makes pretty much any scene focusing on it a complete pain to watch, making it feel more like a crappy drama than Scooby-Doo. Again, there is a reason, but just wait. If anything, this is treated as the biggest example of why intergame relationships just don't work out, and I can't say I disagree there. But speaking of which, similar stuff goes on with Fred and Daphne. Daphne, while having focus, admittedly isn't too independent. Now, I usually don't like it when Daphne is given some over-the-top personality trait to make up for her being kind of bland in past iterations, like Be Cool just making her super overly quirky, or when they try to force secret badass moments thanks to the first movie. Thankfully, this show doesn't entirely make her some damsel in distress. She is usually pretty good in that regard and can take charge of a situation, but that really wasn't a thing for most of the franchise until the James Gunn movie said it was. I think her use in What's New was great, where she had a big role being an orthodox inventor, able to basically break anything with her purse or bring a convenient item to use in an orthodox way. It's simple, but it gave her a unique niche in the group that also fit her materialistic nature. Here, most of her development is tied to her crush on Fred falling for him and trying to get his attention, or being pulled by other romantic interests as well, which admittedly isn't too great that she's mostly defined by this relationship. It's not entirely her character, of course, and the show does evolve it past it. It takes it to interesting roots, but it does kind of suck for her. It doesn't note that Fred is as dense as a brick in the relationship as well. Honestly, yeah, the show really shouldn't attempt intergame romance. It's just not good. It is merely the worst part of the entire show. Sometimes everyone is like legitimately awful to each other and ruins their friendship in moments.
Never leave Scooby for a girl.
He's so your dog.
Sorry, Shag. I got my own problems.
It's nice that they do take the time to actually go into the character relationships with each other and have them dynamic and changed, but I do wish they didn't make so much of it based off of romance drama. Why do cartoons do this? It never turns out well. It mostly boils down to girls want to date the guys, but the guys are super dense. But then there's a character who has changed the most from their original incarnation, Fred. Now, Fred is infamously kind of a boring character. He's the leader of the bunch that takes charge in cases, but usually doesn't do more than that without much of a core personality trait, aside from maybe being a bit of a dork. He has an important role, but not too much defining character. He has been reinvented on occasion with new iterations, but not to the point of Daphne, which does make him a kind of difficult character to adapt, and some really failed. Now, I got some hate in my timeline videos saying in the live action movie that Fred's portrayed by Freddie Prinze Jr. and was a bad portrayal of Fred, and people telling me that he was a good Fred. Yeah, Jessica Alba was a good Susan Storm. I mean, what am I saying? These two are totally the same character. Just watch.
Well, gang, it looks like we're up to our armor plates in another mystery.
Teamwork. I do a tremendous amount of teamwork.
I feel like a side of beef.
Look, I'm a man of substance. Dorky chicks like you turn me on too.
Gang, a door.
I wonder where it leads.
We'll never know.
I can look at myself naked.
Come on, guys, you're all adults now. Just admit when a bad portrayal is a bad portrayal. Take off your nostalgia goggles, it's embarrassing. You might be thinking, well, of course I have to portray Fred as a dumbass narcissistic jerk. He's boring otherwise, there's no way to make him interesting. Except, this is literally how you do it. Mystery Incorporated Fred is the best character of this show. Keeps his core personality trait, but elevates them to being so entertaining. He's a massive Boy Scout, of course, but also very overly optimistic, but being so dense and dorky. He's friendly and easygoing to an insane degree where it feels like almost nothing bothers him. Especially the stuff with the talent and his dad. He's so excited to do anything, but especially solving mysteries. And merely because of it and his naivety, he's insanely dense and doesn't pick up on social cues a lot, especially Daphne dropping obvious hints as he's into him. But he loves his friend so much, it's absolutely adorable. And he can be really emotionally sensitive too, like when he thought Professor Raphael was hunted because of him, and later when the man crab abducted Daphne, putting her to a practically catatonic state, losing her. But one of his most defining traits is his love of traps. He's literally obsessed with it. It's his biggest hobby. He loves devising the most over-the-top, insane traps to catch people and monsters. It's practically an addiction. An addiction that comes in super handy to capture all the insane monsters they face. It develops over time emotion-wise, but he also has by far the biggest impact on the overall story. It makes it so much more engaging, you'll see. So yeah, the show did a lot with the characters. Maybe not all great, but there was legitimate attempts to develop them and make them more intricate, firmer than any Scooby Doo property, making it feel more like a legitimate drama than just a goofy comedy mystery show. It's awesome. But there's also more character surprises and homages to the entire franchise. As I said earlier, it confirms that Scrappy Doo and Flim Flam existed, confirming 13 Ghosts happened. But the Hex Girls are reoccurring characters too, getting an introduction in the 7th episode, getting a new continuity, once again supporting my timeline, showing that this iteration has a different origin than Witch's Ghost, where they're already an existing popular band performing in concerts. The gang meets them for the first time, helping them out from a new villain, the Phantom, trying to ruin their shows. Also, Daphne joins the group and sings a new original song, Trap of Love, over Feelings of Fred, and good lord, it's great. Like, this sounds like a legit song I'd hear on the radio. Absolutely love it.
And we part, set me free, uncage my heart. Trap of love, snared by desire.
It also brings back the classic songs from Witch's Ghost. That's a great callback to the fans of that movie, so you know I love it. And these new versions are awesome. Why couldn't we get an official soundtrack? This show's music is awesome.
One desire. Earth, wind, fire, and air.
There remain supporting characters for the show and aren't one-offs. I love what they did with them here. It's the best iteration in the franchise next to Witch's Ghost. I love it. And also introduces Vincent Van Gogh from 13 Ghosts, but not quite. The 13 Ghosty was a powerful warlock and sorcerer, and helped the gang to recapture the 13 Ghosts they released, being a great ally and friend. But here, he's not magical at all. He's an old actor in horror movies, which is a great homage to his original voice and inspiration, Vincent Price, but now more a washed-up has-been trying to recapture his old glory, who Scooby and Shaggy love to watch. Eventually meeting up with the gang accidentally, as a publicity stunt gone wrong, attracts a case of another monster terrorizing them. This is weird because, as I said, it both confirms and denies 13 Ghosts exist, as is, and they have a history, but Vincent was never part of that story. So Mystery Inc. has a selective continuity here, which is weird because it's the only case like that. Everything is explicitly canon or renewed continuity, but Vincent is the only outlier here. Still ignoring my precious timeline, it is pretty fun to have Vincent on the show as another supporting character, even if its continuity is weird. Plus, like a completely pointless but a super fun episode, Mystery Solver State Finals, Scooby has a dream where the entirety of the show changes design-wise as he enters a contest with the other Hanna-Barbera gangs, the Funky Phantom, Jabberjaw, Speedbuggy, and Captain Caveman, to save their friends from mysterious new evil. And spoilers, again, please watch the show in the episode. It's so damn enjoyable. You should really watch it. Please, please, please. Turns out that the Funky Phantom was really a normal guy pretending to be a ghost, and he was committing human trafficking to sell the gangs to Africa. I'm sorry, what? The show is human trafficking? But still, another love letter to the studio and all the similar characters that followed Scooby. I love it so much, and that's not all. There's still more homages coming up. I love these ties to the franchise as a whole, it truly makes it feel like a celebration of it and another thing that elevates the show. But the show continues on with its classic Scooby-Doo story, with Mystery Inc.'s incredible touch and approach, with really fun and intense episodes and stories like fighting evil gnomes, homages to old Monster B movies, and goddamn Cthulhu. But along the way, it still continues its overall story, and it is something, let me tell you. Still getting clues and help from Mr. E, they find out that 4 teenagers went missing in Crystal Cove, in those very caverns, and 2 of them owned the locket Daphne found. And later in the yearbook, they find exactly who they are: Brad Childs, Ricky Owens, Cassidy Williams, Judy Reeves, and their mascot, Professor Pericles. And each one of them were basically their own version of the Scooby-Doo gang, as their own mystery solvers, naming themselves Mystery Incorporated, a name that our current gang takes as well, realizing this happened before. However, things really pick up by episode 10, where Scooby-Doo is incriminated by the terrifying Fright Hound, which is one of the somewhat real monsters, and it's actually a vicious robot that legitimately tries to kill the gang. It's intense. It's one of the few villains in the show that they actually have to destroy than just capture. Not often you see Scooby-Doo out for blood.
Play dead.
Ever, as Scooby's taken to the prison for disturbed animals, we see the last member of the original Mystery Incorporated, Professor Pericles. Once looking like he could star in a Tootsie Pop commercial, turned into a terrifying villain. And he's our main villain of the series, and by God, he is amazing. Now, Scooby-Doo is iconic villain, sure, but you don't have an objectively great or developed one. Scooby-Doo is an episodic monster of the week kind of show, so it's hard for me to have a significant impact and memorability. Aside from the Where Are You rogues, and even then, it's not like there are any fantastic writing or nuance with them. Really, only the movies can have some, namely Lena and Simone from Zombie Island, or Ben and Sarah Ravencroft from Witch's Ghost. I mean, what else is there? Frickin' Scrappy Doo? No. But Pericles is the one true exception. Being the only serialized Scooby-Doo series, he has a chance to have actual on-screen development and plenty of screen time to show what he's capable of. Once a delightful animal mascot of the previous team and the Brains turned wicked and cruel and completely and utterly devious. I don't know how he made a stupid parrot that looks like the Brain look evil and threatening, but goddamn they pulled it off. Completely cunning and a master of mind games, he always seems one step ahead of everyone and has the ruthlessness and will to pull it off. And you will see just how far this character goes. You will be amazed. I also do love how when we see him before he became evil, he legit looks like he would have fit as a Scooby-Doo ripoff mascot character. Even while he's contained in prison, he gives much deeper hints on the conspiracy of the town and knowing the truths even about the characters' families.
Beware of those closest to you. I'm specifically talking to you, Frederick.
However, as the Fright Hound broke into the prison to try and kill Scooby, Professor Pericles managed to escape and is free on the world. But also does finally get rid of the stupid-ass Velma-Shaggy relationship, as Shaggy is relieved to have Scooby back and picks him over her, leaving her pissed off, and oh my god, this is so painful. Like, I love this show to death, and even I admit the time and dedication to this awful subplot drags down rewatching it, and again, this makes everyone so unlikable. And yeah, more drama as the gang struggles to work together, constantly buy it, like who freaking cares? Again, the show is absolutely incredible, but this is just so bad. Like, regular show and Ben 10 have god-awful romance drama, but at least there's usually breaks in between them. Here it's just back to back, there's no escape until it gets resolved. But moving on, we do get to see more of the important lore building in the universe, Dara University, the college that most of the gang's parent wants them to go to. As it's being haunted by Charger Gothicon, character made by H.P. Haycroft, subtle, along with introducing another author, Harlan Ellison, based off the real Harlan Ellison, actually played by him. The university was founded by the Darrow family, a wealthy family of mystery solvers who mysteriously vanished one day. Foreshadowing. And later, the Destroido Company, a massive meta conglomerate with sovereign immunity to their crimes, famous for massive ecological damage they undertake for profit and ruining many people's lives, and even lives in the process, selling incredibly dangerous and toxic products. In Cry of the Cicada, the board members of the company are being targeted by a strange cicada creature. Finally, it was the person who originally made one of their organic food products, horrified at the company that bought it and changed the formula, adding literal landfill waste and set out to end it. And with what happens in the future, you wish he succeeded. However, the show really picks up and changes stuff with episode 16, Where Walks Aphrodite. This is our first big subversion of the show next to, I guess, Fright Hound, where a new villain, Aphrodite, fills the town with aromatic gas that turns them to her lovesick slaves, being the precursor to Miss Heat from Villainous, a show that teases us that the real villains are manipulative e-girls. But Aphrodite takes over the entire town, and even Mystery Inc. becomes her servants as well, as only Scooby is unaffected being an animal, with no one to help him as he's hunted. No one except Pericles. Pericles in his genius knows how to make an antidote for Aphrodite's formula. Scooby is forced to help him to save his friends. Traveling all over the town for ingredients, he's only able to save one vial before Aphrodite sends her legions to stop them and bring the gang back to their senses, also getting help from Angel Dynamite.
Now I'm going to have to let out an unearthly owl and destroy you.
Eventually working to foil her to get revenge on the town. However, upon foiling them, Pericles in a message reveals he was the one who gave Aphrodite the formula and planned this the whole time, and the ingredient searching had an ulterior motive. finding his own ingredients for an unknown scheme. And he is competing against Mr. E, as his agent, a manager of Destroido and Machine, reveals that he's after the ancient cursed treasure of Crystal Cove by the conquistadors that settled it. And if he finds it,
it could well mean the end of Crystal Cove.
Things are getting real, but the show really takes a turn in the next episode, where the real plot starts. Escape from Mystery Manor. Following the clues of the original Mystery Incorporated to find the mystery of the cursed treasure, they investigate the lead of that group trying to find the lost Darrow family mansion that sunk into the earth 70 years ago, and find it under the college but get trapped inside, and failing enough, it's filled to the absolute brim with death traps, as this weird golem man inhabits it, believing that they are the original Mystery Incorporated, back to steal the family's treasure. He's also voiced by Dwight Schultz, and fittingly enough, he looks like a cracked out monk doll.
Dinner being served tonight will be you.
You take the moon and you take the sun.
Fred, though, is a trap expert and comes in handy not only to get out of the mini death traps, eventually trap the person behind it as well. Except, that's not a guy in a mask. He's real. This was little Danny Darrow, the youngest of the Darrow family, as the family got manipulated by the treasure, as if it had a one-ring effect, clamoring to keep it. He is the only surviving member, and his decades underground isolation and delirium turned him into this. God, he really is Gollum. Who was so obsessed with keeping his treasure, he turned the entire mansion into a death trap to make sure no one can take it. But once talking to the gang comes to term of how he's ruined his life obsessing over it, as the activity has so many traps going off, makes the mansion continue to collapse, this time for good. Mystery Inc. is able to escape, but Danny is not, giving his treasure to them and hoping it brings them more happiness than it ever brought him, before the earth consumes him. Jesus Christ, this episode. It's so good. Not only again gorgeous, but it brings up so much more intricate lore and intrigue, setting up more of the overall story now with the disc pieces introduced, not to mention the messed up story of the Darrow family. Again, you never see this stuff in Scooby-Doo, like never see it, and here it is, amazing. But things calm down with some more standard mysteries. In the Siren song, Velma befriends what she thinks is the mermaid named Amy, trying to help her, and gets really attached to them. I guess this is important. Important that Charlene from Omniverse is likely based off them, neat. However, the ending gave us a huge whammy. That Angel Dynamite, the adult that has been helping the gang the whole time in so many of their mysteries, was actually Cassidy Williams, one of the members of the original Mystery Incorporated, who disappeared in Velma's counterpart. Holy crap. Yeah, things are getting deep, and it gets even more insane. Again, I hate to spoil this show. If you are getting legitimately engaged in this storyline and reveals, please stop and watch the show for yourself. You're really missing out. The next episode, Menace of the Manticore, has a ton of stuff too, starting off revealing that Cassidy is working with Mr. E, who is shown to be the head of Destroido, and tells them that they have a piece of the planet Spirit Disk, the treasure the Darrow family found. She is trying to keep the kids safe, concerned of them all in all of this, especially if the others catch wind of it. The mayor actually asks Fred and the gang's help to stop a monster he blames himself for, as a Manticore is terrorizing the struggling amusement park in the town after they purchase the haunted temple for it. But the daughter of the owner is Marcy, aka Hot Dog Water, nickname she got in school after a struggling family was forced to use water boiling hot dogs for the park for showering. Marcy is a pivotal character for the rest of the show and has a complex relationship with Velma. Fittingly enough, she's voiced by Linda Cardellini, which, as you remember, made Velma in the Gun live-action movies incredible. They are very similar characters, being very inventive and intuitive, but have a harsh rivalry and yet appreciation at the same time, which grows to a strong friendship, eventually showing that she was the Manticore, devising not only its full-body animatronic, but also inventing some form of super helium to fly. What the hell, girl? You did all of this and did that and your family's broke? Literally how? But the episode ends with another massive bombshell, that Mr. E the whole time was Ricky Owens, another original member of Mystery Incorporated and Shaggy's counterpart. Holy sh**. As I said, things are seriously getting interesting and developed, and it's a thing that makes the show so fantastic. Like, you never see this stuff in any other Scooby-Doo series, and they do it so legitimately well and pace it through the episodes. I love it! And even more reveals in A Haunting in Crystal Cove, where it's shown that Mayor Jones owns another disc piece himself, as his house is being haunted by a mysterious specter, revealed to be Professor Pericles and not some normal criminal, as he was trying to obtain the piece for himself, showing that yes, they are incredibly important to solving the mystery of Crystal Cove, and also reveals that Fred's mother left him when he was a baby, and he never met her his whole life. Also, Shaggy and Scooby get haunted by the pizza monster from that one weird Jimmy Neutron episode. Or maybe Pizza Face if you're a Pizza Tower fan. Took the animation in this shot with him. Pericles drops a bomb that the piece belonged to him and Mayor Jones stole it. He successfully managed to pull the rug over Mystery Inc. once captured to make it out with the piece. But Mayor Jones denies his story and involvement in the conspiracy. We get an episode about Sheriff Bronson after an old sheriff, Dead Justice, comes back from the dead to become the town's new favorite law enforcement, takes his job and forces him to work with the Mystery Gang for once. Fun idea. But things pick up in our final 2 episodes to end off season 1. Hunt of Shadows actually opens up with a flashback to the original Mystery Incorporated, investigating a monster, and for the first time actually see them in action. Incredible. Also, Scott Manville voices young Ricky Owens, and good lord, I'm gonna get a Clue flashbacks.
For real, maybe we should call the local Smokey to handle it. Professor Pericles! No!
Sounds like the breakfast alarm, Scoob.
One of this is intentional, but at least his voice works for anyone not actually Shaggy. They're stalked by the ominous monster, the Freak of Crystal Cove. To the present to solve the mystery of the discs, they need to go back to Darrow University and get help from H.B. Haycraft. Even more disturbing that they made an XP of a guy like that is that even this show isn't about parodying Twilight, and they're not even done. But to more pressing matters is the monster, the Obliteratrix. I don't know how the f this show got away with fusing the Terminator with a dominatrix, but they did. This is still Scooby-Doo. Fitting to her name, she legit just wants to kill them all. But in the college's library, they find information on the planispheric discs. Learning the treasure was likely sent by the conquistadors to settle the area. Now need to find the other pieces of the disc. But the Obliteratrix comes back on the attack. Come on, one of her weapons is literally a whip. Also, she just has full-on invisibility. Yeah, what the hell? They just have this in universe? For some reason, that's really world-breaking. Even more than they're somehow doing all of this in heels. Eventually, clues lead them to the Old Spanish Church, locating a secret chamber inside as the Obliteratrix again goes on the attack. And it gets even more overt when Angel wearing a spy suit fights her head-on while she uses an energy whip, guys, come on. After the cat fight, she is just barely captured, revealing her to be Alice May, one of the older villains of the show returning. And she's voiced by Hayden Walsh, so it's wild to hear her PB voice doing a villainous monologue as she gets arrested.
That's right, and it would have worked too if I hadn't been stopped by you, Miss Meddling Sassy Pants.
No comment needed.
Everything was fake. Special effects.
At what part of this was special effects? There's no way this was fake. These kids nearly died dozens of times. You chucked actual explosives at them. Also casually introducing that Johnny Quest in Quest Labs is canon universe. Hope this isn't foreshadowing. Hence how she got her crazy sci-fi gear. She explains that she was hired by Mr. E again, but the gang in danger to draw out Pericles, who still need the gang alive. And if he appeared, he could take his disc part. However, Cassidy is forced to reveal her true identity to the gang. It tells the true secret. They found a map of the planispheric disc in the church. They found the Freak of Crystal Cove, who forced them to leave Crystal Cove and to never come back, threatening to go after their families, hence how they mysteriously disappeared, and basically warning them that the Freak will go after them too if they keep looking for the conspiracy. All this time, she doesn't care who gets the pieces, she just wants to keep them safe. However, they refuse, as unbeknownst to them, the Freak is watching them. Now to the season 1 finale, All Fear the Freak. Now, this is my final warning. Do not keep watching if you have not seen the show. If literally any of this has gotten you interested, the Curse of Crystal Cove, the treasure in the disc, the story of the original Mystery Incorporated, the reveals, turns, lore, literally any of it, do not keep watching. Because this episode changes everything going forward with so many great plot twists and reveals you never expected, and I do not want to ruin it for you. This is your last chance. Please watch it if you haven't. I am being dead serious. Alright then, without further ado, to the end of season 1. Start with another flashback of the original Mystery Incorporated, finding where one piece of the disc lies from the conquistadors. But the cold opening ends with them escaping with the piece, but confronted by the Freak. But in the present, Fred sees his dad reminisce over his wife, says that despite his mystery solving and him not agreeing with it, he still loves him. But the gang needs to work in secret to find out the mayor's involvement in the conspiracy. However, in his office, they find the original scroll OG Mystery Inc. used to find the disc piece under the Spanish church. But the Freak reveals himself to the gang, making them flee, but get caught and arrested by the sheriff for their trespassing, basically being a callback to the first scene of the first episode. Fred's dad doesn't want to press charges, but all the parents are upset thinking that they've gone too far and forced them all to break up. Fred kept their disc piece with Shaggy and Scooby, knowing no one would think they would have something so important. But the Freak catches on, demanding they hand it over, pursuing them until they're saved by Ed Machine, bringing all of the Cassidy again, but they refuse or how are going to solve this themselves, as Cassidy pleads with them that the curse will destroy them like it did her friends. Also on his way, Ed Machine is intercepted by Pericles, saying he needs to send Ricky a message, but not what he thinks. And he kills him. Yeah, really, he literally dies here. He is never seen for the rest of the show. Yes, this Scooby-Doo show has a body count, and I promise you, it gets really high in ways you won't believe. This show is freaking insane. Meanwhile, the gang is going back to the cave to retrace the original gang step, and Velma is able to deduce how the disc works, and decode a portion to find the original chest. However, they get caught by Pericles, who tracks them down explaining more about the treasure.
They lead to a treasure beyond calculation, dear Scooby. A treasure many have died trying to find.
However, as he's aura farming, the Freak surprises him and backhands him away and steals their piece. They escape as Fred goes after the Freak, scaling the cliffs. But Fred hangs for his life as the church starts to collapse on top of him, and he's saved by the Freak. Fred is able to restrain him as the sheriff arrives with Cassidy and their parents. Fred unmasks the Freak, revealing it's his dad, who was directly involved in the conspiracy and threatened the original Mystery Inc. team to force them to stop pursuing the treasure. He too heard of the cursed treasure and became obsessed with finding it, making the Freak persona. While he worked at Darrow University, the team came to him for help, having no idea what they found, but Pericles did. He was also obsessed with the treasure. Pericles was willing to betray the group for his knowledge, as they fabricated documents to force the team to leave town and hand over the piece they found. But he backstabbed Pericles, scarring him and getting him arrested, blaming him for making the kids disappear and given a life sentence. As the mayor, he wants to use his power to find the rest of the pieces. Again, that is freaking insane and huge. But that's not the real twist. His mother wasn't his mother. The photo was taken from a magazine ad. He's not his real father. His real parents were Brad and Judy of the original Mystery Inc. Holy 2 years after they left, they tried to return, married and having a child. Mayor Jones kidnapped him and promised he would keep them safe and raise them as his own if they never returned again, which they did, and he got this end of the bargain. Again, holy Again, this is Scooby Doo. This is Fred we're talking about. This is his story. How is this real? Mayor Jones tries to reassure him that he's still his son and he raised him, but Fred is absolutely betrayed, feeling used. However, they realize they lost a peace as Fred is emotionally destroyed knowing his life is a lie. Knowing he has to do this himself, he quits Mystery Incorporated to find his real parents. Alone, and breaks it with Daphne after so long. To make matters worse, Shaggy's parents think this has gone too far and are sending him to military school with Scooby going to a farm. Daphne blaming Velma for keeping the secret of Cassidy's identity for so long, and they could have avoided all of this. So yeah, the entire gang is shattered and seemingly for good. But the episode doesn't end there, as Pericles taunts Scooby alone, revealing that he has both of the pieces and only 4 to go, fleeing to the night as Scooby Squirrels will stop him, somehow.
Oh, my name isn't Scooby-Doo.
My god, this episode. Just what can I say but bravo. And that wraps up for season 1. And man, what a ride. Again, it's a complete surprise that this is from Scooby Doo, and why it makes sense how this show has its legacy. This show's legacy is dried down by the romance drama, which I do agree is by far the worst part of it. It's very tedious and infuriating, and something that has ruined the gang's dynamic. Mostly in terms of Velma, but even Daphne and Fred getting tedious and rather forced, like a bad drama show. For as bad as it was doing what's pretty much unheard of at the time. Actually developing the main cast outside their typical tropes and having them grow as characters, really going through their relationships and how much they wanted to commit to each other. You have never seen this done before. Even if it's not done great, it's still interesting nonetheless. And I will give credit, they eventually to stop with it, at least for the most part, halfway through the season, so that stupid toxic Velma stuff isn't there anymore. It's a very superfluous flaw that isn't relevant for most of the series. And I'd argue that on their own, the characters are done great and work a lot more than they usually do. Fred especially. Fred is infamous for being the most boring member of the group, but they make him the most enjoyable and engaging character, which is unheard of in Scooby Doo. Everything else is incredible. I've already gone to how amazing the show is animated in its art style, that it's one of the best looking shows that the network ever has made, and being one of the few Scooby Doo shows to have genuinely fantastic and brilliant art and animation. Also how it handled so many of the other characters, having an entire reoccurring cast also changes and develops over time. But also it's a legitimately great Scooby Doo show at its core. I think mostly the episodes about stopping monsters are great. They work well as Scooby Doo episodes, and many are super memorable and unique. Not only for the brilliant monster designs held so much by the atmosphere, how they're played out and progressed being so inventive and fresh and out there, especially with establishing Fred as a trap master who can make so many insane ones. Some of the best Scooby Doo stuff out there. My only complaint is that I feel they need more suspects for the mysteries, as there's usually only 1 or 2 when other shows might do more, but again, I feel it doesn't really matter with how good and enjoyable it is. The real kicker is the overlying mystery of the show. It's done so well. Usually the lore is only at the beginning or end of the show, so it's the best of both worlds. Casual fans can get still a mostly standalone mystery that's a ton of fun, but people get plot progression and lore drops supplementary, building the overall mystery. And it works so well. Again, it's amazing this show works. A Scooby Doo show with actual serialization and engaging overarching plot. It shouldn't work, but it does. They make it so interesting to the lore of the original Mystery Incorporated, to a conspiracy of the town that everyone seems to play a part of and get too invested in what the hell's going on. Even with so many subversive episodes to focus on, like Word Walks Aphrodite and Escape from Mystery Manor, and the reveal of Freddy's history and true parentage. How the hell is this a thing? It's, as I said, the show simultaneously perfects Scooby Doo by committing and subverting it, making nearly everything work, making the most brilliant and daring series that hasn't been topped to this day. What if I tell you it gets even bigger? Yes, this was frankly all standard, all just set up. What if I told you it gets even more insane, more conspiracy, more reveals, more mysteries, and an actual Eldritch-style storyline you need to see to believe? If you thought season 1 was good, then just wait till season 2. Okay, that was a ride, but yeah, we gotta move on. Now to season... Whoa, what was that? Oh no, it's that thing I was establishing at the beginning of the video! The playback phantom! Oh man, that was the most elaborate and expensive off-screen Scooby-Doo style chase sequence ever. The pause on to get this video taken down in 2 seconds. Thanks, YouTube. But we're safe now for the time being, so let's keep going. And maybe, just maybe, we can figure out who's behind this phantom. To the season, we get a bit of a time skip after the events, starting off with the night the clown cried. Without the mystery again, that's not the villains, a new villain. Crybaby Clown, this Thing, also voiced by Mark Hamill of all people. I guess this is the equivalent of the Joker if it's not the crossover continuity.
You don't like Crybaby Clown? That hurts my feelings. You calling my mommy a liar?
They're terrorizing the place and again just chucking actual explosives at people. The new mayor, Janet, after Jones was arrested, is at a loss how to deal with them, needing to unite the gang back. And as it turns out, the farm Scooby was sent to is more of a prison, with the farm just straight up gonna shoot him with a shotgun. Jesus Christ. Janet rescues them and then goes to get Shaggy from the military school pretty easily, all things considered. I thought this would be harder. And Fred is literally just going door to door asking about his parents becoming a hobo. He's not interested to join until hearing the clown is involved, so he can capture a baby clown man. Yes, this is the reason. Eventually meeting up with Velma trying to stop the clown and get them together since he can't do it on their own. But they still need Daphne, but she refuses as he's now dating someone else after they broke up. Also, yeah, another Twilight reference as he's Baylor Hotner, a parody of Taylor Lautner, best known for his role as Shark Boy from Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Yes, that was him. This stems from a lot of her resentment of Fred breaking up with her and never getting her, too obsessed with mysteries or traps. Also, with the massive menace in town, the townspeople actually are happy to see the gang united and want them to help. Daphne again refuses to join, wanting to leave mystery solving behind with the new perfect romance. Now, I think this drama works because it works with the story and by the story. A lot of romance drama from early season 1 came from the characters as being stupid, pushy, and awful, which made it infuriating and like the trapping of so many other shows, like Ben 10 or Regular Show, which makes it detestable. But these things work when the narrative actually supports them, like with American Dragon, where the characters don't act like idiots all the time, and the narrative pushes their relationship and the drama that comes from it, which feels earned. I just wish the show kept it up earlier. Fred, though, being as dense as ever, thinks he's actually coming back, sets up a trap for the clown expecting Daphne to help, which he never does, allowing the clown to escape as the episode ends. Yeah, the episode ends with the monster getting away. When have you ever seen that? The next episode takes a bit of a change though, showing Velma and Marcy from before are working as agents for Mr. E, and when Baba Yaga and her walking house numbers in Crystal Cove. Marcy is the one to take Daphne's role to help stop them, revealing the third piece of the planispheric disc, but also that Marcy is a spy for E. The next episode, it's time to finally deal with the clown, as he's abducting numerous people all over Crystal Cove, and Ricky wants Cassidy to get close to the kids again, but Cassidy refuses, not wanting to hurt them again. Also saying that Ricky was once in love with her. The clown is escaping on a plane with all those he's abducted, including Daphne, but get intercepted by the gang having a huge over-the-top battle in the plane. Like, it's really cool and so well made. It doesn't even trap the villain, he just punches him out, eventually revealing the crybaby clown the whole time was Baylor Hotner, method acting for his next role and abducting people he needs for his rise in stardom. Eventually revealing he was just using Daphne to boost his image, and rightfully dumps him on the spot and goes back to the gang and her true friends who have supported her. However, this means that Marcy has to leave to Velma's disappointment, but Marcy being a double agent knew. Then they fight evil David Bowie. But more importantly, Fred's real parents return to his life now that Mary Jones is gone, plus bringing their dog Nova, which Scooby loves. And things get real interesting in episode 5, Hodag of Horror, where the sideshow attraction, the Hodag, which is a real thing, comes to life. Villain was using it to steal a 500-year-old wheel of cheese, but in the cheese somehow is the 4th planispheric disc piece, with them having 2 more pieces. Pericles calls an alliance of all the members of the original Mystery Inc. And a really underwhelming episode, like good lord it was so boring. The only actually interesting part is the subplot showing how Ricky and Pericles met, hubbing when he was injured and becoming best friends, and then actually joined forces together and agree to silence Cassidy for good. The next episode's monster is Dark Lilith. And okay, what's with this show and the sexy monster ladies? I'm not complaining, but still, why? I think a Spanish boat on top of a mountain somehow. Reading a manifest, the conquistadors gathered immense loads of plundered treasure, but their greed led them to a crystal sarcophagus being affected by the curse. But there is a thing sealed inside manipulating them, committing atrocities. Now, I've heard some people pissed that this show implies the atrocities done by the conquistadors were done by some dark magic manipulation, but I don't think the show is saying that at all. At least all conquistadors, just the party that found it. It doesn't make sense otherwise in lore and timeline-wise. Not like these guys found it and brought it to Spain to possess all the country. Though admittedly, it is kind of a touchy subject they're striding with fictionalizing a story with conquistadors. Probably should have just not. But these Spaniards founded the cove after the crystal sarcophagus, and were the ones to hide it and the treasure, burying it and sealing it to stop the evil from getting out and splitting the disc that held the location. The ship was brought up the mountain to protect it and the piece, fighting Lilith to get the 5th piece and revealing that it's Marcy again using her super healing attack to fly. And for their friendship, yeah right, she gives Velma the piece and goes to hiding from E. And there's only one more piece left. But as they leave, we get our first legitimate paranormal event, as the ghost of the conquistador sees them and just says, Nibiru. So yeah, the show is legitimately going to dip to the paranormal. There were hints in buildup before, but now and moving forward, it's right on screen. Also, we need to mention Fred's parents. They're trying to get back in his life with him still unsure and not used to them. However, it turns out they're both trap masters, even more than Fred, showing it's a trait passes down to him. We get a lot more lore when the gang has to spend a night in the Burlington Library. The library was founded by a leader of an even older mystery-solving team in the 1880s, older than the Darrow family and the original Mystery Incorporated. Benevolent Lords of Mystery, with an awesome steampunk look, with their mascot orangutan Mr. Peaches. Even more mysterious are portraits and depictions of even more mystery-solving gangs, each with 4 members and an animal. Seems really weird, and Oswald Burlington was wondering too and trying to research it. All of this has happened before, plus finding an ancient tome in the library that says how to use the disc. But okay, we have some cool and great episodes this season, and much more lore and build up than before, with nearly every episode introducing some new lore or reveal or progression like finding the pieces. And it's great, I love it. As I said, it works perfectly for the show. You get an enjoyable standalone Scooby Doo mystery with the Mystery Incorporated flavor, and it still keeps you invested in the ongoing narrative at the same time. But while we had some character drama and great twists and turns, we haven't really gotten some of the serious drama. We got some of the season 1 finale about Fred's dad being the freak and getting rid of the original Mystery Incorporated, and the reveal he's not actually Fred's father, and similar ones like in Fright or Escape from Mystery Manor. But from this episode on, things get serious. Things get dark, starting fittingly enough with the Midnight Zone. Cassidy is in a radio station trying to tell the public of the truth of the conspiracy as he's attacked by a Nazi robot. Yes, really. They're called Christophobots, and actively invoke the imagery, even nearly calling it out. What the hell is this show?
Start with why there's a World War II era robot on the ground.
He's been repeatedly attacked by these robotic assassins, but Velma deduces they must come underwater in the nearby trench and need to find the origin before Cassidy's life is in any more danger. Daphne calling assistance from 2 kids, Tom and Tub, and their pet seal Scooby, of a submarine called Moby Dick. Seems weird, but this is a very obscure callback to a short-lived Hanna-Barbera cartoon, Moby Dick. With these characters, and no joke, the seal named Scooby actually predates Scooby Doo. No joke, what a world. To tell them that there's a whole undersea town by the coast they need to check out. Velma identifies the town as a lost town of missionaries that fell to the ocean 300 years ago, but they get ambushed by the bots, but find a secret underwater facility in the side of the trench, being warned not to enter, allowing them to get access to the facility and see the bots are in a huge mining operation. It's also a huge assembly facility to manufacture legions of bots being chased around as they seek to kill, but they find the main control room, thinking they'll find the person responsible for the Ghost Lady warnings. And they do! It's her corpse! Holy show! Again, this is freaking Scooby Doo! And that's not all. The corpse talks once again, speaking of Nibiru. But Velma identifies them as Abigail Gluck, a member of the Benevolent Lords of Mystery, those steampunk guys with the orangutan. She was that group's Velma counterpart, a genius inventor. But they get surprised by Pericles, revealing he knew Abigail when she was old, and she built a lab in the robots originally looked for the 6th piece of the disc, as the monks of the monastery historically had the 4th and 6th piece. But Pericles took over to manufacture bots for his own use and to find the last piece. The ghostly visage was a hologram by him, but it's already too late. He found the piece, and with all the bots he'll ever need, he'll blow it up with them in it. This freaking parrot, my god. Mystery Inc. and Cassidy are forced to fight their way out through the army of bots, and are able to get to the sub, but there's no way to open the hatch without someone actively pulling the override lever. Cassidy volunteers, promising she'll follow behind, and with no other choice, they agree as they flee. But not before Daphne brings up her statement about regret, seeing Fred and Daphne have split up. It knows that it's between her and Ricky. Lost love that was never achieved, as Cassidy tells her not to make the same mistake she did. As she holds the lever so they can escape as she's swarmed by bots, as they barely make it as the facility explodes. They come to the surface waiting for Cassidy, but all that pops up is her broken helmet. Everyone prays that's not what they think, but they can't deny it. Yes, Cassidy is dead. Holy This Scooby-Doo show just actively killed off a reoccurring supporting character. Technically they did with Ed Machine, but it was vague and it wasn't much of a character. But Cassidy, she was here since the first episode and a constant companion to the gang and incredibly plot relevant to boot. She felt just as much as a character as the main gang, sometimes even more. And this show actually killed them off. Again, holy sh**. When I say this show is a complete game changer for the franchise, I mean it. When have you ever seen anything like that? Mystery Incorporated has a reputation of being the darkest show of the franchise, not only for its incredibly dark and ambient atmosphere or its drama and lore, but because it's not afraid to go through these legitimate depths for its narrative. A Scooby-Doo show that has an actual body count. And I promise you, it'll keep rising. And it's another reason why this show is so well acclaimed. And as I said before, this is where the show really turns, with the death of Cassidy as well as Pericles having his own personal army of deathbots to go and kill the cast, and he's only going to get more and more deranged. The next episode is lighter, but only somewhat. You remember Destroido, the mega company Ricky made? We got taste of its evil before, but this episode shows it at the forefront. They not only pollute the environment like a Captain Planet villain and make harmful products, but we see firsthand the mutated toxic landscapes they've created that have also mutated the life to it to horrific malformed abominations. And it really makes me appreciate this show's incredible art direction and atmosphere, even more with how it's brought to life in the great world it establishes. You never get anything like this in any Scooby Doo media or show. It feels totally unique and new. Mystery Incorporated truly makes the most fleshed out and interesting world out of any Scooby Doo series. It's incredible. But they're sent to investigate the site and the company laboratories for a particular mutant, the Scare Bear, a huge humanoid mutated bear, which ain't no worse than your average Jaguar. But it also shows that Brad and Judy are working with Ricky and Pericles, and the parrot and Ricky want Mystery Inc. out of the way immediately to get their 3 pieces of the disc to complete it, resorting to blowing them up in a good chunk of innocence with a bomb. Granted, out of context, the scene is hilarious.
Disarm this bomb.
Bomb? I didn't set a bomb.
You can talk?
Of course I can talk. Where's this bomb?
But the bear, yeah, it turns out that's not a guy in a costume. That's legitimately his skin. He was mutated by Destroido's products after they used a chemical toxin once used in fertilizer that was so hazardous, it literally killed an entire town and the company got away scot-free. And using it for body wash, it turned into practically a wolf man. All he wanted to do is expose their crimes. Even Mystery Inc. fully understands and don't want to arrest him. But the next episode is an unexpected game changer and proves how much the show subverts expectations. But before, Velma looks up what Nibiru means, and that's believed to be named after a planet that's said to pass by Earth every few thousand years and allows its sentient inhabitants, the Anunnaki, to interact with Earth to become their first gods. But it is believed there will be a collision that will destroy Earth itself. However, then the Mystery Inc. gang is called by a new monster, Krampus, and it's not even a Christmas special, terrorizing the bad kids of the town and turning their hair white with fear. But as they're doing that, Pericles and Ricky get Brad and Judy on their side to steal the kids half of the planispheric disc, trying to manipulate their connection with Fred while they're distracted with the new monster. We even get a callback in the Cove's prison, where we see a ghost chunk of the previous mass criminals arrested. You can identify so many. In most Scooby-Doo shows, you really can't, but a lot of these designs are so unique and memorable, it works really well. But Brad and Judy think they got away with the gang's pieces, just to see their pieces gone. The video revealing all of this was a ploy by the gang, who set up Krampus using Charlie the Haunted Robot and getting help from all over the town, including Mayor Jones in prison, and used Marcy to infiltrate Ricky's compound to take their pieces while distracted, with Fred pretty much saying he can't come back to his real parents knowing how corrupted they are. And holy, that was totally unexpected. Like, it's a really good surprise and huge plot twist for the series you never expect. But with them assembling the entire disc, the only question is,
what do we do now?
But the next episode is much more fun, being an unexpected but amazing crossover with the Blue Falcon and Dynamite, and even bringing back Johnny Quest for a flashback and the random supervillain. It's so good and fun. I said it before, but this show legitimately has done a much better job being in a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe with love for the original shows than Scoob did, and that was literally that entire movie's purpose. Also ironic how Scooby and Shaggy being a huge fan of the two seems to be a universal constant. It's the only time the Blue Falcon was actually cool. We peeked at this. We get back to serious plot in the next episode, Theater of Doom, where Vincent Van Gogh in his failing career gets a chance to boost it, putting on a theater performance, telling the story of how the missionaries saved the town after the incident that caused a chunk to sink into the sea. These were another mystery organization, focusing on Fire Sarah and his donkey Porto, the counterparts of Fred and Scooby from this group. But it gets haunted by the mummy of Fire Sarah himself, worrying that no one should tell it or be doomed. But through their usual antics and putting on the show, they catch and reveal him, ironically being one of the show's reoccurring suspects. However, in one of my favorite horror tropes, they question how he did one thing when he was in the audience, and he said he didn't do that. He assumed they did. Then the real mummy of Fire Sarah rises and tells them of the true story. Porto the donkey never saved the town. He was the one who destroyed it. The Fraternitas Mysterium they were in, who resided in the old Spanish church, found the 4th and 6th pieces given by a conquistador, but were too possessed by the curse of the sealed entity. Porto was affected most of all and went to destroy the town, causing the explosion that fractured the coast and sent it to the sea, with the 6th piece in it. Fire Sarah chased Porto through the alligator-infested swamps, which is implied to be Gatorsburg from the second episode, but couldn't catch him, who retrieved the 4th piece, and hid it away in a crate of cheese, hence why it was found there. The mummy warns of the oncoming Nibiru event and the cycle of mystery solvers, warning them specifically that it always starts with the animal, as seen with Porto and Pericles, pointing to Scooby.
Heed the warning of the alligators. The dog dies.
again, this is freaking Scooby Doo. This is so insane, but it's awesome. The next episode is another shift for the series that there's absolutely no mystery, just a massive crisis. Professor Pericles is so dead on finding the disc, they force Ricky using the Destroyer's resources to genetically alter cattle, combining DNA to become these horrifying monstrosity, the horrible herd of skull cattle, to destroy all of Crystal Cove to look for it. And yeah, there's legit off-screen casualties as the man goes on full scorched earth mode, showing how legitimately devious he is.
I have 28 of my best scientists listed as presumed missing. No! Make that 29.
These abominations were made by combining cattle, bee, and piranha DNA and ended up making hives under the town. But Daphne figures if they're made from bees, they have a queen they can use to lure the cattle away, which is somehow true and actually works, and toss the herd into the sea. But since they're also part piranha, they're perfectly fine and will no doubt cause a ton of ecological problems, and that's SpongeBob's problem now. However, Nova, the dog from earlier, and Scooby's girlfriend, falls from the helicopter and gets Mufasa and is put in a comatose state. But yeah, again, what a shakeup. This doesn't feel anything like Scooby-Doo, and yet for this show, it feels it works perfectly, elevating the stakes as we move closer to the climax. We take a break and get to one of the most memorable and fun episodes, Dance of the Undead, where an old ska band, Rude Boy and the Ska-tastics, come back as zombies and continue to play. God, I know they say ska is dead, but this is getting a little too literal.
You're dead right, mate. Dead right, mate.
Their music now has an almost mystical effect, causing those who hear it to continually dance and dance until exhaustion. And they correlate it to the dancing plague of 1518, which was an actual event that happened in our world, where for some unknown reason, hundreds of people just kept dancing and dancing for weeks on end until exhaustion. Here explained by cursed music and frequencies affecting the brain. And it's not long before the music affects the gang too, all except for Shaggy and Scooby, who are tone deaf so it doesn't work on them. But they have to fight music with music, so they get help from the best people they know. That's right, the Hex Girls are back and in their original outfits, hell yeah.
We're the Hex Girls. Magic-infused rock is how we roll.
Then to the best climax of the show, where they confront the ska zombies and have a full-on Scott Pilgrim-style music battle, dueling songs between each other, somehow making full-on constructs made of music with no explanation. It's so great, I love this so damn much. Eventually, they of course managed to win because their music is far superior, but they got there with help from Shaggy and Scooby on guitar. Wait, wasn't it plot important that they're tone deaf? And who cares? It's so good. Why is there no album for this show? I need it right now. I love this show. I love it can do things that are so over the top fun and epic like this, so much more than literally any other Scooby-Doo show. It's so good, man. It's so good. However, it doesn't end there, as the girls casually hang out with them. But see, the planispheric disc has changed, as the girls are able to read music notes from it. Now able to find more coordinates from it, finding more mysterious objects believed to be keys to the treasure. There was a flintlock pistol from a previous episode and a conquistador helmet here. Also, very confusingly, Nova wakes up from her coma, talking.
Nibiru is coming.
The next episode, The Devouring, has a huge gluttony demon on the rampage, devouring food from all the restaurants in town, even eating people alive. Oh, this isn't foreshadowing. They make a trap in one of the few surviving restaurants after trying to get rid of all the food supply, but it doesn't work. Thankfully, they do manage to subdue it since Scooby and Shaggy have gotten so fat from eating all the food, they're able to actually just sumo wrestle the thing to submission. You know, the show doesn't do this type of cartoony stuff, it's actually mostly realistic, so it's really weird. Though, speaking of which, I got some assholes in the timeline video where I called out Frank Creeper for having Daphne cursed to gain weight and treating it as the worst thing that could happen to her, and she's ugly as rightfully harmful and horrible, but people try to defend that crap like, no, you see, it's a good thing they're trying to call it such an unhealthy lifestyle and shit, forgetting that, you know, it was goddamn magic. But yeah, look at this, and please tell me that Scooby-Doo, the franchise that is filled to the brim with gags about overeating and gaining weight, is seriously trying to advocate for healthy eating and body fitness. You cannot be real with this. Also, surprisingly, no one brought up my point that the movie never addresses that, and only does so as an aesthetical problem for Daphne, which, as I said, ruins her character, portraying her as entirely vain, putting all her worth in her appearance and treating being somewhat unconvincingly attractive as the worst possible thing that could happen to her. Literally an actual curse, and entirely depicts her as shallow like a cardboard cutout valley girl, and ruins any depth she has or any attempt to prove that she's more than that through personality or being a secret badass when she literally runs away crying for being chubby. No one mentioned that, funny enough. Gee, it's almost like you don't actually give a shit about other people's well-being and are only doing this as a flimsy excuse to bully and harass past people over physical differences. But no, that clearly can't be the case. Yeah, don't pretend to have a moral high ground you're clearly not actually standing on. But back to the episode, it's plot relevant as the exposed villain, Francely, who was another previously occurring character. I do love that the consistent location allows for this to have a surprise villain. Drops her ancient Mayan bowl upon arrest, which is yet another key. Also, Pericles has gotten so unhinged and unstable in his ambition to find the treasure that Ricky actually tries to double cross him and get Brad and Judy to his side, only to see them turn on him as Pericles injected mutant cobra larvae into his spine. It makes a plan to inject venom, putting him through unbelievable pain unless he does exactly what he wants. Jesus Christ. Anyway, the 20th episode, Stand and Deliver, has probably the lamest villain, just this stupid guy. Someone should really run up and punch him. Also, they get the last key unceremoniously. But the real thing here is the lore and foreshadowing, with it starting with this Twin Peaks homage. And not the weirdest one I've seen in a cartoon. That gives us a massive exposition dump by Nova. But it's not her. It's an entity using her body to speak. She is of the Anunnaki, an extra-dimensional race of advanced beings that visit Earth every few thousand years during the time of Nibiru to help them, talking through the body of an animal as they have no physical form in this reality, and create similar figures in myth like the Egyptian animal-headed gods of Sun Wukong. The descendants of these Anunnaki possessed animals can gain human-like intelligence and even the ability to speak. Possibly correlates to many of the mystery-solving animals seen in the past, especially Pericles. But yes, this is the implied reason why Scooby-Doo can talk. I'm not kidding. Now, they never confirm it, but it is pretty directly implied that he's a descendant of one of said animals. This is what I mean, that this show is incredible at diving into the lore and establishment of Scooby-Doo and subverting it, but making it fit perfectly. This is the only piece of media in the franchise that gives an actual explanation in universe to why Scooby can speak. It's insane, I can't understate it. This show truly wants to dive into everything about the show and revitalize it in a whole new way. However, Nova explains that not all Anunnaki are good. Some are pure evil, the most being the one sealed in the sarcophagus under the city, and it must not be let out and it needs to be destroyed, or else everything, and I mean everything, is going to be destroyed. But that was really our last standalone Scooby-Doo type mystery episode. For the rest of the 6 episodes, it's all story-based, and it's gonna need to pay off the build-up. Man in the Mirror is especially weird, starting with Fred seemingly being taken by a mirror duplicate to an alternative dimension. Weird, only thought this happened to Shaggy. He gets seemingly replaced by his doppelganger, doing a pretty bad job honestly, surprised these guys don't immediately suspect him. As Fred somehow wakes up in a post-apocalyptic Crystal Cove, seeing all his friends dead except for Daphne, aged horribly, and desperate to undo the apocalypse caused by the disc, but they can reverse it if they find it. But it's pretty clear that fake Fred is being fed information from Apocalypse Daphne, following Fred in the Apocalypse Crystal Cove to find the disc. And meanwhile, fake Fred is turning into a live-action movie Fred.
You don't understand. Intellect isn't your strong suit, huh? What about you? Got any smarts in there behind those eye goggles?
But Fred pretty easily figures out it's all fake, helped by fake Daphne getting things wrong, and figures it's just the old abandoned movie studio, renovated to be an exact copy of the Cove. So it's Fred versus Fred as they do the, oh no, which one is the real one, which should be pretty easy honestly, and it is. But Fred puts together that it's Brad and Judy. He used plastic surgery to look like this, as Fred wouldn't be fooled by a mask. I don't know about that. Either way, Brad and Judy just look like this for the rest of the show, so yeah. So Fred just calls out what terrible parents they are after this. However, Pericles comes in with the backup plan of, hand over the disc or I'll get my Nazi death bots to kill your girlfriend. Which of course, he does. Showing that was the real planispheric disc. Okay, why the hell would you actually direct them to the real disc? Like, literally, why? This makes no sense and it's stupid and kind of badly written. But with the disc in his claws, Pericles says he's going to free his master. But then to our next big exposition episode, Nightmare in Red. Scooby keeps getting Nightmare's vision of the Red Room and goes to the man he keeps seeing, Professor Charon. He also shows them the freak of Crystal Cove, the true freak appearing in their dreams, worrying that if he gets them while he sleeps, he'll never wake up. With Charon explaining the version of him in Scooby's vision is the manifestation of the best part of him, trapped outside of the world in the sitting room. It has the answers they find and being able to destroy the freak if they find its true identity, and he gets them there through hypnosis. But in the room they see dozens and dozens of figures of people they know and the previous mystery solvers. Fred thinks the figure of his fake dad is the real freak since it was his monster identity, but he's actually able to talk to him here, explaining all the figures they see are the best parts of those affected by the curse, hence why so many affected are complete shells of their former selves, deprive their humanity from it. He also explains that he's not the freak, and he got the idea of the freak from the monster he saw in his nightmares, that being the monstrous freak. However, they all flee and come see figures of most of the other mystery solving teams from the past, and each of them have the weird keys they found so it's all connected. But they're chased by the freak, eventually finding a Mayan temple, with Nova calling them the true inheritors of the original, and they need to take the knowledge here outside. Also, Velma just has a complete mental breakdown with all the craziness. Fred traps the freak, revealing it to be the original conquistador who took the crystal sarcophagus. He was doing all of this to atone for the atrocities he did under the influence, as killing the thing would break the curse, and it's his words, they don't deserve to be free. But Nova says all can be undone. Fred takes a chance to talk to his old father after his real parents' betrayal, and that he was his true father and he still loved him. Mayor Jones saying the same, that even if he wasn't his real son and they struggled seeing eye to eye, he also loved him and is proud of him and considers him his true son. It's a great scene, I love it, and how it ties the story together.
Know that having you as my son was the absolute best part of my life. You were always the best part of me.
And it's one of those things where you think something was absolutely horrible. It turns out that in the end, it was the best possible thing to have happened. It's great. However, the real truth emerges that the original mystery solvers were a group of 4 Mayans and a jaguar, the Hunters of Mystery. And they were the only group than the current one to not give in to the curse and remain pure and sought to destroy the entity with a mystical spear, the heart of the jaguar, and almost did it the conquistadors didn't take the sarcophagus for themselves. And that's what they need. But they get really existential after learning this, that they're all just pawns by an eldritch whore repeating a cycle to set it free. One that has constantly manipulated people after centuries and even causing so many of the criminals they see, almost training them. They question if they really are friends after this, or even if they have free will at all. It's insane. Again, when have you ever seen a Scooby Doo thing that has actually gotten existential and dives this far into the gang just as a concept? It's so good. Again, this show does so much. The next episode they travel to the Yucatan Peninsula, with Velma's mom tagging along weirdly, to find the lost temple from the visions that has it, but now have to deal with the crazy sorceress and her ferocious living plants, eventually finding the spear deep in the tomb of the original solvers and defeating and unmasking the priestess in the temple. Also with a nice moment of Velma's mom trying to help her grapple with the paranormal existing. It's real nice and good closure after the tension from before. But now with the weapon that leads us to the 3-part finale, the end of all this craziness. I'm going to say this one last time. If you still haven't seen the show, which I pray you did see and didn't get this far without it, please go and see it. You do not want to get spoiled on how this crazy show ends. Okay? Let's finally finish this. The gang goes back to Crystal Cove, but the town is in ruins with absolutely no one around, much like the setup from before. And Sheriff Bronson screaming everyone's gone. Everyone has been pulled into the earth, just as it erupts and grabs the sheriff and Mayor Janet. They get away as Velma tries to piece everything together after what her mom says accepting the paranormal, and finds the time of Nibiru is almost upon them. The planets have aligned and so has Planet X. The Force makes the fabric of space-time weak, allowing for the entity to take form, but still have the 4 mysterious keys that disled them. But also revealing the Force from the ground is Pericles Christophobots, abducting people and actively trying to gun the gang down if it wasn't for Fred's death traps in his home. Following them to see Pericles has enslaved the entire town to do manual labor and mine under the cove under threat of being shot. Ricky, seeing how far his former friends have gone, regrets doing any of this and feels Cassidy was right all along, with Pericles forcing Ricky, that once the slaves have found the chamber, to literally kill them all. This freaking parrot is going to slaughter thousands of innocent people by firing squad, to quote all of them. He is by far the biggest monster we have ever seen in this entire franchise, and he's not even done.
Not one person from Crystal Cove will be left alive.
Of course, the gang has to stop them. And reminder, this Scooby-Doo story is the gang trying to stop everyone they ever know from being gunned down and killed. Think about it. They get a plan of action though, not knowing if they can make it out, with Fred and Daphne reaffirming their relationship after so long. It's actually beautiful. Quickly jury-rigging the mystery machines and making disguises in Fred's house to start a slave uprising. And just in time as Pericles finds the door and the gang goes into action, and even Bronson starts the uprising and professes his love for the mayor. Nice. And this show has Scooby using a goddamn Gatling gun to destroy killer Nazi robots. It's incredible.
You mess with my Shaggy, you mess with me. They drew first blood, not me.
Everyone escapes as the gang has to stop the evil plot plowing through the robot army, but eventually have to sacrifice the mystery machine for good. But Pericles is able to unseal the door with the disc with a small army of bots left. But he still needs the gang first, knowing they'll follow him as they pass, carrying a box. As the gang follows with their keys and the spear, knowing it's the point of no return. As they travel, the evil gang finds a gate and knows the mystery gang is around and has the key. And they know they can lure them out by opening the box, and pulls out Marcy. Oh yes, they're going there, forcing the gang to reveal themselves and open the gate. Each gate and key responds to an alchemical element: wind, earth, water, and fire. But it's not easy as each is a trap of its own, consuming some of his bots before being narrowly foiled with the air key, opening it and revealing new dimensions through it. But before they can do anything, Marcy grabs Pericles and holds him hostage and allows the rest of the gang to get ahead and kill the entity before Pericles frees it, knowing she has to do whatever she can to stop him and allowing them to get a head start. However, Brad and Judy trap her and free Pericles as he orders his robots to aim at her, and yes, this show just killed this girl. Literally gunned down a kid, and you can hear it. Good freaking lord, this is so dark. One of the most dark, if not the darkest moment in any Scooby Doo series. It's a complete punch to the face. I'm amazed they got away with it. This show is considered one of the darkest things the series puts out, and it's earned it. And Pericles is legitimately the most twisted and best villain in the series. Cold, violent, merciless, cunning, and threatening with so much buildup, he's truly effective, and the franchise hasn't come close since. He's the perfect antithesis of the franchise and the perfect parallel to Scooby himself, being the exact opposite in literally every way, and makes the perfect antagonist for this series. Even Ricky is absolutely appalled by his actions, but of course Pericles just threatens him with torture again.
Guess I expected more from you.
So did I, little girl. So did I.
Eventually, the gang go through more and more of the gates and trials, using their keys along the way and dealing with more threats. Even having Shaggy hold a goddamn gun. What is this episode? Actually, not even the first time, technically. In the final room, in a molten chamber, they find the crystal sarcophagus surrounded by riches containing the eldritch horror waiting to be free. The entity taunts them, saying they have no free will, and he brought them together for this moment. Everything was done for it and it alone, the author of their lives. They panic at the revelation, but refuse it, as Nibiru finally arrives. Before they can do anything, Pericles and his forces arrive. Wait, how the hell did they get through all that?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Easily restraining them, Pericles unseals the entity to escape out to the real form, in its true form, which... honestly, I'm not too into it. It looks kind of silly. Evil spaghetti monster. And now to the series finale, Come Undone. With Nova explaining the Anunnaki history, helping humanity, and sealing away the evil Anunnaki entity in the sarcophagus, explaining its desire to devour worlds and the life of everything around it, threatening to consume all of reality. Again, this is freaking Scooby Doo. The entity grabs Scooby, seeking to kill him to become his new vessel in this reality. Scooby refuses and breaks out, but Pericles offers himself as the vessel for ultimate power, which it accepts. As it consumes him, he laughs in glee, becoming a dark god himself. However, he stops in immense pain, as his essence is literally consumed by the entity, becoming a new Cthulhu-like being. Pericles is dead, only this monster remains in real flesh. Brad and Judy offer to serve him, as he accepts, by literally eating them alive for their energy. Yes, eating them alive. They are also killed for real. He takes control of Pericles' robots, demanding they gather the others to feed on and go stronger and break the connection to the sarcophagus. Scooby-Doo confronts the abomination with the heart of the jaguar to try and kill it, but the blade shatters. All hope is lost as they flee for their lives. Ricky, now the only surviving member of the old gang, sacrifices himself to allow the kids to escape, as he is too eaten alive. However, mysteriously, a force protects the group. The entity then releases itself onto Crystal Cove, destroying the entire town in fire and lava, and then starts eating everyone else. Like everyone. Everyone is dying in this show. What the fuck? It's truly the end of the world, now summoning his legion of evil Anunnaki minions to do his bidding, and they capture more humans to feed on. And it's so many people we know, they're all dead. Their parents, the sheriff, the mayor, literally everyone is dead. It's just the gang now. As they're surrounded, Scooby calls Nova for help as she freezes time apparently, and tells him that the heart of the jaguar was never the spear. It's something else entirely, and he'll know what to do. But weirdly enough, the entity can't grab them, eventually realizing the heart of the jaguar isn't a weapon. It's them. It's all of them, and their love for each other. The purity that stopped them from succumbing to the evil of the entity. As long as they're together, it can't touch them. Cheesy, but God, I love it.
And that is something that monster can never take away. Something it can never defeat.
Taking one last stand, they take what's left of the spear, getting the idea to kill it by destroying the sarcophagus when it's still bound to it. As it sends its legions after them, the gang each takes turn trusting the others and throwing the spear to each other as they're captured, till it finally gets thrown to Scooby, with one last kick at the sarcophagus's mouth, shattering it and killing the entity where it stands, creating a singularity that consumes everything, and I mean everything, except for them, as it explodes out, and everything is normal. Everything. They're overjoyed that they did it, and actually calls back to the first scene of the show, awesome, but things are too normal. Crystal Cove is no longer the most haunted place on Earth, but now reads the sunniest. As foreshadowed earlier by Nova, killing the entity has reversed all of its effects it's had for its existence, creating a brand new timeline. The entity never manipulated anyone. The town was free from its curse, with only the game remembering the old timeline. There were never any costumed criminals in monster outfits. Sheriff Bronson and Mayor Janet have a family together. The Darrow family never got consumed by the peace. Danny Darrow lives a happy life as a college dean. Wait, shouldn't he still be like 80? whatever. Fred was raised by Brad and Judy, who never became evil, though Willie is still named Fred. We see Ricky Owens is now a Steve Jobs-type figure, and Destroyer was never created, reversing the horrible catastrophes that evil company created. Now it's Creation X, dedicated to clean, sustainable energy. And he and Cassidy also got married to each other like they've always wanted, with Pericles as the happy mascot as well, never becoming the devious supervillain he once was.
Creation X makes life better for everyone.
And even all of them have successful new lives they never had before. Also, we see Velma is close friends with Marcy, ending with,
That's my girl.
Now, okay, I gotta pause here. So remember, long ago at the start, I mentioned a big thing about the Shaggy and Velma relationship drama. According to the interview, it was always planned for Velma to be a lesbian, and the Shaggy plot was supposed to implicate that she's forcing a straight relationship and realizing it can't work, and eventually getting attached to Marcy, with that line being the only actual indication of them being together.
Velma is gay, and we're gonna show her, though, as a character that doesn't know that in the beginning, or has feelings but doesn't understand them, which is why she kind of acts the way she does in the beginning of the series. Finds a mermaid at one point, and this female mermaid that she forms this bond with, and this is not it's not haphazard that she's falling in love with a female mermaid. There's a reason nobody got it. Maybe in hindsight they got it, but they didn't at the time.
Now, okay, on the one hand, I admit it's pretty ballsy to do at the time, since you could not show a same-sex relationship in a cartoon like this at the time. It took a long time for this stuff to be accepted, and eventually things like Trick or Treat Scooby Doo would just outright canonize it. Now, I don't have a problem with this, I just have a problem with the execution, because you can't explicitly show a same-sex relationship at the time. Everything had to be as subtle and implied as possible, and to most people, it just did not come to mind, particularly with the Shaggy and Velma stuff. That stuff was the worst part of the entire show, being a tired and infuriating romance drama that dragged down that portion of the show so much. But because they couldn't outright show it or the journey, the only actual payoff to all of that is,
That's my girl.
so to most people, including me, all that just felt like awful romance drama that was entirely unneeded. In fact, when I heard the statement about her being a lesbian the whole time, I actually had gone on record calling it out on my timeline video that just felt like a retcon after dedicating so much to this Shaggy romance. It felt untrue. It wasn't until I saw the interview I realized, no, apparently it was all planned. I think that really hurt the show. Like, I want to remind you, Benton Ultimate Alien was airing around the same time, and it did genuinely the same type of crap, but it was supposed to be legit romance, so this just felt like the same thing. Hard to feel like it's also describing romance drama for the sake of drama. Then Omniverse did it, but somehow worse. Plus, I don't know how well that works, since it ignores how actually toxic Velma was trying to force a commitment and fundamentally changing a person to her own wants, and it just genuinely ignores it, so I feel she's probably gonna act the same way if she didn't have someone so much like her like Marcy. This is the one thing that genuinely drives down this series and its legacy, being the one thing everyone hates about it and the thing people use against it the most. I genuinely think they should not have done it when they weren't able to actually pay it off. Either just make it so much smaller, or just get rid of that aspect because it's honestly not needed. Just focus more on Velma and Marcy's relationship, or the most you can get away with. Again, I'm not against it, I just hate the execution. But anyway, with more differences after, the former Mayor Jones is now the school's principal, but it was felt a fatherly connection with Fred, whose colleague, Harlan Ellison, that guy from season 1, wanted to send them a message. But the gang is in shock and despair that they have lives that aren't their own, not knowing who they are anymore, and that they live in a world without mysteries. However, on the message, Harlan, now naming himself Mr. E, tells them that he knows what happens, as he's one of the few people who remembers after every reset, and he invites them to go to Miskatonic University for college and to find more mysteries. But since it's so far away, they need to drive there across the country and solve every mystery along the way as they drive out for new adventures. With Nova, wait, how's he still here? Did you ever wake up from that coma? Saying,
Thank you, Scooby-Doo. You are the bravest dog that ever lived.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
And what an ending. Now, I'm gonna take a minute to talk about the potential season 3 and the timeline discrepancies and more of my own timeline stuff, so skip here for the final thoughts. So apparently this bookend wasn't always gonna be a bookend. Sure, this was the end of the story, but they were open to a season 3 if possible, hence why they leave it open. Apparently there were plans if that did happen, then it would continue from their adventure solving mysteries and bringing back the Where Are You stories. But I really don't like that. For one, this story shouldn't continue. From the very beginning, it established the overlying mystery and story arc, and it was a fantastic ending with universal level stakes. You can't just continue on from that. You can't go from Eldritch God to Old Man Jenkins and not feel underwhelming. To me, while continuations are fun, continuing after a story ended just cheapens the entire experience. But also that this is literally impossible timeline-wise. Now, in my timeline video, people kept commenting about the show specifically. I didn't bring up the new timeline, it's a change to the map, so I'm gonna address why I didn't. Now, I didn't do it because 1, this is a massive spoiler for the end of the series, and under no circumstance do I want to casually spoil. And secondly, since there was no continuation after, there's no continuation for this timeline, so there's nothing else to establish it. There's no time point, this is a thing that happened after. Maybe Happy Halloween, but that doesn't make too much sense. But people are like, but this connects to Where Are You? It's a prequel, and no, it's clearly not. 1, as I said, Where Are You and a bunch of other stuff clearly happened and was openly referenced. And that season 3 idea is impossible because, as I said, Where Are You wasn't a road trip. They were consistent reoccurring locations, it was in the relative area. And also with the logic of the show, those guys were possessed by the entity to become monsters. They shouldn't be the exact same monsters in the new timeline. And the biggest proof of all, Fred himself. Reminder, he's canonically Fred Jones in all these versions, and Mystery Incorporated had him be kidnapped and named after his kidnapper, Fred Jones Sr. In the new timeline, that's not his name anymore. He's Fred Childs after his actual father. He shouldn't even be named Fred, honestly. So yeah, the Where Are You show and everything else fundamentally cannot be in the new timeline. It's literally impossible. Also, what do you want me to do? Just erase this whole section of the timeline, including Where Are You? Just replace it with Mystery Incorporated? That's stupid. That's not how timeline maps work. If anything, it starts a new timeline from the new origin before Where Are You. That goes nowhere since there's nothing after this show. So stop telling me my map is wrong. You're all wrong. I love you, my timeline. You're my baby. But yeah, that's it. Now to end it. So after all of this, we finally gotten through Mystery Incorporated. And I'll admit, I realize I spent most of this just explaining the episodes and plots, but I really had to. I need to do a full deep dive on the details of this show, how it handled everything, and all the lore and build to its narrative. I had to portray it so you remember and understand everything of what I mean. This show, frankly, does not feel real. A show that does so much that was never expected from this franchise, feeling so different from everything and yet feeling perfectly at home with it. It's a massive anomaly. It's a serialized Scooby Doo story with a genuinely engaging and fantastic narrative spread throughout its run, with so many actually great reveals, twists, turns, lore. It's so incredible to experience. It's complemented with such fantastic artistry, some of the best use of lighting and shading I've ever seen in Western animation, that constantly experiments and is so stylized and gorgeous to its backgrounds, to its atmosphere, to its shading, fluid animation, and the extraordinary character designs, and especially the monster designs, coming from a franchise that infamously never had that great animation for its shows, being one of the best looking shows the network put out. Not to mention the fantastic music as well, that I genuinely wish I was able to hear at the soundtrack. It is possibly the darkest thing the franchise put out, only rivaled by Zombie Island. Not only through its incredibly great atmospheric art style, but its in-depth story and conspiracy, and the absolute depravity of the characters, the absolute carnage, and the actual death toll the series amassed, through its tackling of very tragic, very real subject matter. And yet it doesn't feel too dark, having plenty of fun and humorous moments. It actually developed its characters and reinvents them, making them grow and become engaging in a way that has never been done before, and arguably never has since. A show where you can get legitimately invested and care about these iconic characters for so long. And yet it still feels like Scooby Doo. It nails the core of the franchise, the heart of it, makes them the most unorthodox, crazy, engaging, entertaining, and memorable and best standalone mystery plots, complemented by everything else that it works as a Scooby Doo show despite everything else. And it loves its legacy, calling back to not only so many iconic parts of the franchise, through the obvious or relatively obscure, but done to the entire studio's work, including crossovers and cameos that shouldn't be there, but done with so much love and dedication. It worked better than the actual feature movie that was intended to be that. It feels like the absolute pinnacle of Scooby Doo. I can barely even express my love for it. I'm amazed to find out that this show wasn't intended to be some massive masterpiece of the franchise from the ground up, and the people behind it never wanted to do Scooby-Doo in the first place, but they were given the freedom they needed to rewrite and handle the franchise in their own way, the way they wanted to. It just had to push it past every single boundary it had, and it worked so well. It was exactly what the franchise needed at the perfect opportunity for it to exist, and that will probably never happen again. Now, there are definitely detractors for the series. Some people might drag it down by how it handled its romance, and admittedly that is a problem with the show. But acting like it's the only part of it is just foolish and wrong and ignores everything else it did so extraordinarily right. It's not even a problem for the whole show, and it's mostly avoidable, as like after episode 10 it like never matters much again. Saying the romance drama ruins this show is like saying romance drama ruined Ben 10 10 a regular show. Sure, those had horrible romance drama, but they're not about that and are still fantastic. We can and should admit that fantastic shows can have problems. Acting like a show needs to be perfect to be some masterpiece or even good is idiotic and harmful. Like, we can acknowledge Gravity Falls had problems, but it's still spectacular and incredibly influential. Complaining about the small things like that is so pedantic and stupid when looking at everything the show did right and did so extraordinarily right. Or it gets attraction simply by its nature, saying that since it has real paranormal stuff by the Scooby Doo purists out there. And in that case, do I have the perfect movie for you? But even though I know these people exist and even had the franchise to this day, I disagree. The best Scooby Doo media don't just have paranormal things in it. It's how much they want to experiment and take the franchise in a new direction. Think about it. So many people want the franchise to stay the same in the familiar glory of the old days. But can you really be the best if you just do the same thing like everyone else has done before? No. You need to experiment. Try something new and different and put so much more effort into it. And that's what so many of the best Scooby-Doo media did. They didn't just change the franchise's rules or whatever, they elevated it. Sure, it doesn't always work, trying something different doesn't always work out, like with the Scrappy Doo show or Get a Clue, which barely felt like the franchise. But the ones that did it the best, like Zombie Island and Mystery Incorporated, always kept the heart of the franchise with what they did, always keeping it in mind at the core, and that's what made them work so well and so clamored as the best things to come from it. They took the franchise in a new direction and tried something new and risky, and it paid off, and that's great. They wanted to take the franchise seriously and tell an engaging, atmospheric, and well-made story, and they succeeded. And it's frankly the most adult the franchise ever got. Okay, that was actually good. But when people want an adult Scooby-Doo series, they don't want something like that relies on being raunchy or provocative. They want something like Mystery Incorporated, a show that takes itself seriously and tells a detailed and engaging story with actual stakes, drama, and development. Like Scooby Natural, in fact. By the way, peel in my timeline video, that was a special on another show, not an actual Scooby-Doo release. And in universe is literally just an episode of the show they go into. It doesn't belong in the timeline, please stop telling me I missed it. But seriously, this show did so much that it rightfully earned its mega status as the best Scooby-Doo show and one of the best things this franchise put out. Hell, it's probably one of the reasons why Be Cool was so hated at first to follow this masterpiece. It really is just between this and Zombie Island to what's the objective best thing in the franchise. And honestly, I might have to give it to Mystery Incorporated. Sure, Zombie Island was much more influential, reviving the franchise, but Mystery Incorporated rather unfairly as the show was able to expand on so much: the world, the lore, the engaging story, an overarching mystery, and developing the characters. And, well, come on, the crazy cat thing immediately came out of nowhere, you can't deny it. And watching this show truly made me remember why it's so fantastic and beloved in the fandom. I was so engaged while rewatching it, loving it, and got so into it and enjoying practically all of it. It has so many good attributes, it feels like it can work outside of Scooby-Doo. It makes me wish the monsters were real. Seriously, I wish there was a show like this fused with like Archie's Weird Mysteries or something. I would fall in love with that. Wait, is that just Gravity Falls? Sometimes I feel it's held back being a Scooby-Doo show, having to have episodic monsters and costumes and keeping the archetypes of the characters. But it tries so hard to move beyond that, taking so many of the familiar aspects and expanding it. How they are together, their interpersonal relationships and families, so you can care about them. Why so many people are going costumes, making Fred the most interesting and fun character when he never was before. And freaking giving a reason why Scooby-Doo can talk. You never see this in any other Scooby-Doo media. It shouldn't work, but it does. It takes what works about the franchise and expands it, making it so much interesting and better, and that's good. And I legitimately don't think we're ever going to top this. It was pretty much a perfect circumstance that can never be replicated. When the franchise genuinely wanted to try something new and was allowed to, was like the original Zombie Island. Go-Go Mystery Machine looks super fun and promising, and maybe it might be my favorite, but I seriously do not think it will ever be as utterly fantastic as this show. I don't think we'll ever surpass this, and frankly, I'm okay with that. And all of this, well, I have no qualms calling Mystery Incorporated Scooby-Doo's Magnum Opus. And well, that ends another Scooby-Doo Halloween. Don't know what I'm going to do for the next one, but we'll see. And I'm going to keep in mind what this series has taught us. Friendship can keep us through the harshest circumstances, always stay mindful and skeptical, never back down, and most importantly, any monster can be defeated with a good trap. And speaking of... yes! I took inspiration from this Fred and made the most over-the-top complicated trap for our little phantom terrorizing videos, completely off-screen, and it sounds like it worked. Time to get changed and get the gang to check it out. Alright gang, let's see what this playback phantom really is. The YouTube algorithm? Of course, you pretend to be a ghost to terrorize videos by smaller channels, making them afraid to post new videos and having an excuse not to promote them, then only promoting big channels for the bigger revenue payday. And I would have gotten away with it too. In fact, I'm still gonna get away with it. This changes literally nothing. They're right, guys. We really can't stop them.
At least we caught the bad guy.
Please don't talk to me.
Mars is in a coma and she might not wake up.
I'm glad you got a friend now, even though that's messed up.